My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. It is currently Sunday, October 26, 2025. Good morning. This is the P.O.C. The people of the state are still gang stalking, and they're doing so in concert with the state of California in order to accomplish a murder committed maliciously as a government act, a government system. They are gang stalking still. That murder is not going to occur. However, a federal prosecution of epic proportions and prosecutions of people in positions that have never occurred in this country for reasons that have never been proven, that is going to occur. And engaging in that gang stalking and furtherance of murder includes third-party license 7TGH009 at 537 North Euclid Avenue, which is where I'm located. The entity at Starbucks, 507 North Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California. The entity is maintaining light activity in alignment to me, and that's under the malicious guise. This is what the demons are doing. Oh, we're going to Starbucks to get a coffee. A demon that's driving a large truck is leaving the vehicle with the hazard lights on while they go pick up their order that they use their communication device. All of it is serving monitoring. They are simultaneously stalking in the path with light activity in front of me, and that's also where the government is conveniently stalking, flying over the storefront. They're gang stalking together in furtherance of monitoring and furtherance of murder. And that's actually what Starbucks is engaged in the United States. They make money while doing so. That's a federal RICO case. 8JZK248, 8VDJ892. They also engaged in kidnapping, as I documented Ocean, and Amelia, Patty, the rest of these mentally ill demons that are gang stalking with light. You saw them exhibiting mental illness in Starbucks, and they prepare your coffee. 7THX 757 22155 N3 7UGU 351 9MHV 536, I believe 539. I can't see the last character. I believe that is Brian. There's a demon in there named Brian, gang stalker. These are malicious demons, the mentally ill that stalk via drive-thrus. They stalk in bathrooms. They stalk where they have access to planes and helicopters. The mentally ill are a part of the airport that's going to be shut down and the so-called police department that's going to be disbanded. And this is the entity that provides evidence against its co-defendants. That's license 9HMV520. And like I stated, which is always the case because I don't make up information, I never made up the fact that the police are stalking me in helicopters. And the entity that's engaging in what is stalking, I want to be clear, when you hear the plane activity, when I am at the side of the OVITT Family Community Library, and I am west of that location, and you have the ongoing perpetual noise of a plane that is never taking off, even when they're feigning a takeoff at that location, the entities engaging in what is stalking, and that's confirming what I just described as the case. That's audible noise, however, while a demon is stalking with light in the drive-thru. That's a prosecution of a business. 8PYB068 is indeed stalking with the demons. 7UGU351. They're stalking with the demons that are using planes. That's the prosecution for the demons of the Ontario, before I run down their names, for the demons that are engaging in what is criminal monitoring and furtherance of murder, a so-called Ontario International Board, 8EJT122. This is criminal facilitation for murder. 9JVG694 is sharing in that. And they conveniently do so by buying a cup of coffee, where they're simultaneously engaging in what is light activity, audible activity, which the government conveniently provides when they are stalking in planes and helicopters, stalking like Union Pacific was all night while the entity is exhibiting severe mental illness, massive train activity. Oh my goodness, the train activity is so loud, it's about to shatter the windows. That's mental illness by demons that are stalking with amplified noise, okay? It's not the noise of the train. It's not the noise of the helicopter when I'm inside of my apartment or inside of my office at Alvarado Gardens and there's helicopter activity and I'm documenting it because you're dealing with an entity that seeks to falsely depict your character as though you're hallucinating, as though you're in the bathroom screaming at people when that doesn't happen. This is why you document the demon possessed. While they lie and make up information while they are stalking, in fact, they are actually stalking you. And the entities engaged in what is the sound of helicopter activity when there's no helicopter anywhere near where you would naturally be able to hear that. But if you pay attention and you see down yonder in the distance, stalking, flying in a circle, is the LAPD flying over the mountains far away from my apartment where there's no possible way I would be able to hear helicopter activity. It would not create any disturbance while I'm in the workplace or in my apartment. However, that's the demonic feature regarding targeting by a demon-possessed government that is systematically providing evidence to the federal government that's going to prosecute it for terrorism in furtherance of murder. That is what Lisa Gu, Ronald Leverage, Jim Bowman, Kurt Hagman, Alan D. Wapner, they're going to be federally prosecuted as the terrorists that they are. They're also highly unintelligent terrorists because now they're engaging in this criminal system in front of everyone, where before they thought that they were so cunning, they thought that they were so clever, they thought that their witchcraft was so potent that no one would see them, no one would ever suspect them, no one would ever be able to prove what it is that they are in fact doing and are responsible for. You don't have to be the demon in the cockpit stalking in those planes. You will be federally prosecuted as though you are, though. You're in a position of authority, and they are in these positions of authority while they are engaging in what is facilitating, enabling, funding, dictating what is permitted to occur with these planes as they occur. The entities engaging in what is stalking literally in real time as I'm walking on Euclid Avenue, no longer flying over the storefront, next to me, stalking in planes, just like you saw yesterday after I exit the library, stalking, flying next to me over Metro 102 apartments. No planes are taking off and arriving at the airport over Metro 102 apartments at 102 North Lemon Avenue either. Okay. The entity then, as I walk up the opposite direction, what are they doing? Flying over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. Stalking as I walk in the opposite direction, flying right next to me, remaining on the south side of my person. This is what is happening when you are, again, west of that location. And now 5WBC 103 is the location
location, that's a third-party license plate, gang stalking, is the location where the entity is then taking off here. But when I am off of Lemon Avenue, you're taking off above that street. At what point are the planes going to actually elevate into the sky space so that they are not perpetually maintaining extraordinarily loud plane activity where you have already should have taken off from 2500 Airport Drive, the two terminals where planes are actually supposed to be taking off and then engaging in what is an actual departure from what is hovering in the sky space, because that's not what airports are around for, and that's not pursuant to the zoning laws. That's not pursuant to agreements that airports make with cities when they are placed by agreement in cities in order to maintain airports and the business of airports and how the flights are going to be arranged, etc. This is an entity that's engaging in what is plane stalking. And by plane, I mean obvious stalking. They're using planes to engage in obvious stalking because the planes are never taking off. That's what I'm documenting. They're always hovering around me, and they do so on the south side of my person, whatever direction that I'm going. They are doing that while the demon-possessed are stalking with light. These are the mentally ill. 9TWR827, JEDIH8R. One demon after another, all three of them flying a crossing path coming from the Euclid Avenue and East Street, maintaining surveillance on behalf of the government. The government that lies about, these demons, said that you're yelling at them in the bathroom when you're not even addressing them. License 7DZX214 is joined by third parties, and this is ARCO that's gang stalking. ARCO's license plate 9TIH520, documented stalking me with the Ontario Police via helicopter, documented stalking me with the Ontario International Airport that is maintaining flight over the ARCO parking lot as I'm at this location. Not doing so anymore over the Starbucks, because that's where they are flying over UNICARE Community Center. You're going to look at a Google Maps with regard to the entity that's engaging what is stalking, evolving as I evolve, where I'm moving. And this is where the demon-possessed that fly into parking spaces, or parking stalls rather, gas stalls, to engage in what is presence in the path. The mentally ill that are stalking with light in doing so. These are the psychopaths that drive and stalk under a fake sun. These are the psychopaths that are stalking with impossible light while they do so. These are the psychopaths that sit around engaging in surveillance in a building all day long while the sun never leaves, and they're walking around in that engineer light. They are the mentally ill, the demon-possessed. That's, again, 9TWR827, co-conspirator of murder, JEDIH8R, co-conspirator of murder, and that is an Arizona plate. And the license plate 7DZX214, co-conspirators of murder, and they're also mentally ill. License plate 9HSF156, co-conspirators of murder. These are also the mentally ill. Gang stalkers are going to be prosecuted for the mental illness that is exhibited through their criminal activity. And with regard to their delusion, when you're listening to demons that are gang stalking together and they are together engaged in what is delusional behavior while they lie to each other about what they're doing, and they're embarrassed while it's being published on the internet about what they're doing and what is wrong with them as they do it. Those are the demons that are engaging in that. The laughter, I want to be clear, the lies that they state, the malicious assertions that they make about, for example, I want you to listen to the laughter. This is audible activity of a psychopath. The entities engage in what is monitoring my vagina, and then they laugh about it because they're embarrassed about it. That's the mental illness of demons that are gang stalking. Mental illness that's purely exhibited by stalking under a fake sun. Those are the demon possessed that laugh about their mental condition that's no longer a secret. They are engaging in the pattern of conduct while they are embarrassed about the reality of what is wrong with them in their minds, while they engage in no longer secret criminal conduct. And not only that, the gang stalking immigrants are going to be deported while they share that mental illness. They share that same disdain for the law. License plate 7XIY347. Sharing in what is humorous regarding ongoing criminal conduct and your mental illness that poses a threat to other people, you are going to be deported from this country. 6JJU158. The mentally ill that are engaged in what is hysterical laughter exhibit a threat to the public while they're engaging in stalking as a population, which only delusional psychopaths laugh about while they're embarrassed about it being a fact. This is P.O.C. This is the P.O.C. that the entity is sharing in while they're stalking in planes and helicopters. Mike LORENZ's mental illness is put on full display while his co-defendant that shares that same condition is laughing about what is, I want to be clear, even if they're laughing about The substance of, I watched this cartoon and it was funny. It's actually audible activity where they are passive aggressive psychopaths and they're actually hostile, but Satan is a psychopath, so Satan will exhibit hostility by laughter. This is what Tracy Banks, very mentally ill, exhibited in her apartment. She's very much disturbed, and so is the psychopath that's gang stalking. In particular, the mentally ill demon at what is Gaston number 4. That again, that psychopath's license plate is 9HSF156. That's P.O.C. That's the criminal case against the state that is engaging what is relying on a mentally ill population to keep you under surveillance. They share mental illness while the population calls itself a police department, calls itself an airport. This is the substance of what is proven to you mental illness that's stalking in planes and helicopters, stalking as a fire department, and they are all engaged in surveillance, and they engage in that mentally sick behavior. Hysterical laughter, when you are proven to be engaging in what is that which you are embarrassed about, that which you know is shameful and highly unacceptable and improper, meaning you are embarrassed, in other words, and you resort to what is laughter. That's going to be used to diagnose the mental illness that is no longer closeted. That is a very dangerous person, by the way. Those are the ones that are engaging in what is monitoring your vagina and then accusing you of being a sex offender, such as, I don't know, molesting children in the bathroom when they're engaged in monitoring your genitalia in the bathroom. That's the psychopaths that fill the OVITT Family Community Library. The psychopaths that engage in criminal summoning when you are engaged in what is documentation and they have to make up information. They have to make up information in order to substantiate why are they in your presence in the first place. They being the demons that are wearing uniforms, engaging in hysterical laughter about the truth of what they are and what they're doing, which is not funny at all. That's mental illness. In the same way you see their mental illness in HD when they're stalking with impossible light. The demons that you see that are stalking with impossible light, that's what was filling up its gas tank, stalking me at the same time. They're there stalking with light. They're there stalking on behalf of the state. There's nothing funny about it. Understand, Satan is a delusional psychopath and it is operating through a spirit. So that's why I'm using the name Satan, because that spirit has an identity. And it is an invisible one, and it is manifesting in the behavior such that it is a pattern of conduct. And this is, again, the ability to make a categorical assessment regarding the mental illness of those that are engaging in this criminal system. They are demons. They resort to hysterical laughter when they engage in criminal activity, which is psychopathic, psychologically torturous, sexually perverted, and abnormal with regard to the demented behaviors of monitoring, which is mental illness in the physical, license 316ZGO. That's an out-of-state license plate, which is mental illness that is demonstrated in the physical. Okay, the hysterical laughter are the embarrassed demons. In other words, they experience emotions, but their emotions are very much demented. These are abnormal. They have a seared conscience, meaning they lack. And at this point, when you're talking about demons that are monitoring, these are people that are long gone, meaning they are spiritually, they're dead. And so you're talking about zombies. These are people who are zombies. These are people that engage in zombie-like behavior. They engage in conduct that is harmful to other people, lacking any regard for how they feel, but they will engage in what is trying to protect how they feel. Self-preservation is a psychopath that begins laughing when they're embarrassed, that engages in what is blaming other people for that which they're guilty of, which is how also the demon-possessed make confessions. Okay, so, and you'll see that in this case that is going to occur in court. The entity that engaged in what is defaming me, that's the entity that's actually guilty of the accusations that were presented against me. And of course, they presented those accusations in my absence. Okay, so the entity's engaging in what is accusing me of being a drug addict and accusing me of being a streetwalker and accusing me of committing criminal acts that they are the ones that and I mean the detail. Accusing of pedophilia, it came out of the mouth of a pedophile. Okay? Accusing me of engaging in what is stealing, theft, whatever, it came out of the mouth of a thief. That is literally Satan that's admitting. And the entities engage in this while they've been gang stalking the whole time. And that's the personality defect of the demons that are engaged in what is hysterical laughter. While they're engaged, that's all. First of all, it's audible activity. This is a demon that's monitoring. But you need to understand, look at the video that you see of demons driving on what is D Street under the fake sun at 320 North Euclid Avenue, where I am right now, where the entity had the fake sun at 5:45 in the evening. evening where the Ontario International Airport is hovering over that apartment building, stalking and incriminating everybody at that venue and everybody in the city. All right, but this is just showing you the apartment building is gang stalking. Everyone is gang stalking, including psychopaths that resort to hysterical laughter when they're listening to their criminal activity, when they're listening to their license plate being dictated in order to document, because they are all monitoring me. They know what I'm doing, and they're that obsessed and psychopathic that they still do it in the face of that evidence. That's also relevant to the way in which your mental illness, your demented mindset is going to be assessed. So you engaged in this and you knew that you were being documented. That's getting to your level of obsession. Your level of obsession, which is also inexplicable. What is this obsession that you clearly have? Because it's not a matter of just slander. It's not a matter of what is a rumor. It's not a matter of what you're stating. Oh, you were not coincidentally there under the fake sun filling up your gas tank. You're not coincidentally there when the government is stalking by plane and helicopter. You are there pursuant to a pattern of conduct. What is with your inexplicable obsession with a targeted individual? These are the things that are going to be relevant to assessing mental illness. Also, the malice behind that, because the entity resorts to hysterical laughter when they are exposed in ways in which they never anticipated. Hysterical laughter is an outside indicator regarding severe mental illness. There's nothing funny about it, and there's also an inability to accept accountability. License 22815V3, gang stalking, and over inside of the parking garage where the Ontario International Airport is stalking with them by flying over, stalking me in the path 12519H2, 8SUS 710. 9MUK 454. And this is the same personality that's engaged. Gang stalking is so funny. 9KUC 579, while the entity amplifies plane activity. 9BSK 030. License 8HZT 415. And again, this is Saris Regis that's being prosecuted as a company, conspiring murder. Company's conspiracy to commit murder is committed by the government gang stalking an American citizen, the people of the state gang stalking an American citizen through any engagement, participation, facilitation, enabling by an establishment such as what Downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments has been documented engaging in. EG 93V82 paper. License 9TPV190, 9TGJ919. License plate 9LDS762. License plate 8ZXA510. These are the psychopaths that are stalking and molesting with impossible light. The Ontario International Airport is not gang stalking by themselves. They're doing it with the demon-possessed that resort to hysterical laughter when they engage in demonic, and that is mentally ill behavior, such as stalking, molesting, a sex act committed by a demon engaging in what is the supernatural to touch while stalking. Stalking with impossible light. This is what these demons are doing as I'm documenting it last night. EG54R50. They're not charging their vehicles. They are in possession of no constitutional right whatsoever. This is what they're doing, driving in and out of this parking garage where your headlights are not going to touch me. They're not going to be blinding, and you're also not going to be on the roads and the highways avoiding a car accident with this level of light activity that they're stalking me with. These are the demons that are going to be mentally assessed while you hear them engaging in hysterical laughter. This is exactly what you witnessed Tracy Banks engaging in while she was being embarrassed, not because I'm a mean daughter, but because I'm documenting her based on 100% fact, and a psychopath engages in hysterical laughter. Also relevant to assessing their mental illness. License 8PFV013, 9VAR132. P.O.C. Demons that are stalking in helicopters and in airplanes, engaging in the same behavior. I guarantee it. There is no response. There's nothing that they can state about it, and all they will be engaging in things such as silence, inexplicable, defenseless denial, and laughter. They're psychopaths. 7VHB 900, 7TFY 929, 9JWL 226, 8HUN 304, 9RNU 766, 7UVR 285, 8XLN 046, 9NMA 647. Saris Regis Group threatens my life, my safety, my well-being, while I am being targeted by the government in furtherance of murder. That's the significance of stalking that is proven while the entity, the Ontario International Airport, is deviating from any sort of airport airport operations while they're flying over this apartment building, and they're doing so routinely in the environment that is conducive to monitoring. This is the pattern of conduct, okay? And the City of Ontario is not the only documented gang stalking entity that's engaging what is stalking me through the police that are using helicopters and through the city that is using planes of a city airport. 8 SER 97, and the entity does so also in smaller planes that are flying over the top of my head. The commercial planes of the City of Ontario flying over the top of my head, doing so while you're not taking off from the airport doing that. This is the entity that's clearly targeted, including while they're flying over the apartment building. You're going to prosecute that apartment building. 8RIW 900, 8XXW 733, 9JEH 388. You're also going to prosecute the apartment building because it's a crime scene. It's criminal facilitation while the gang stalkers themselves reside there. Or go to the that venue and charge their Teslas engaging in the same elements of monitoring. Okay, P.O.C. It is currently 7:22 a.m. The entity is stalking at the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, where you're looking at the fake sun rising and setting. While I'm inside of the OVITT Family Community Library at 5:45 p.m. and you're looking, while I'm sitting at computer station number 1, where the demons D. Ramos and Christ come and engage in what is a failed effort to turn around and change the narrative. Oh, they're not mentally ill. I'm mentally ill. That's why we're here doing a health check. That's what that was supposed to be. When I know, actually, are you? That's why I asked them, no, do you feel like hurting yourself? Do you feel okay? Because those are they're the ones that are mentally ill. The audible activity, however, is on the record. That's, first of all, you're monitoring, and that's pursuant to what is stalking, and it's legally relevant that you're doing that while you're wearing a police uniform, Satan. That's laughable. And the audible activity coming out of your face is defamatory in substance with regard to your malice of being here in the first place, pursuant to malicious assertions, overtly false, because they clearly did not happen, which is my ongoing public investigation proving that. And it's also relevant that you are again resorting to what is fabricated details in order to be in my presence while you are being exposed as mentally ill, and you seek to try to create a narrative in real time while you're being embarrassed on the internet. This is analogous to hysterical laughter, lying about why you are there, and conducting a so-called health check, which is a threat to engage in kidnapping, just like that same department did on not only September 28, 2025, but May 29, 2025. Okay? They committed kidnapping on July 4, 2025, pursuant to Ocean, that's still gang stalking at the Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue, who is, while I'm documenting, just like I was the other day inside of the restroom, using my communication device, not speaking to anyone, actually. You're listening, you're being within earshot is so what? I don't care. Don't care. Don't care, and I'm able to use my communication device and talk about whatever I want, actually. And you should be in the bathroom stall minding your business, since you're not a gang stalking, vagina monitoring demon. But that's not what happened, is it? So while I am engaged in what is using my communication device, and in Starbucks, I'm not even speaking. I'm on my device looking at my pictures that I'm taking, reviewing, and that's when that same agency that's monitoring on my device, that's keeping me under surveillance everywhere that I'm going, in concert with venues like Starbucks. The entity is engaged in what is summoning that same gang stalking entity. Mike Lorenz's criminal prosecution, every kidnapping, is going to be used in his federal prosecution and in Derek Williams' federal prosecution, including the fake son over that Ontario Police Department. It's going to be used in their federal prosecution. License 9NYH399. Gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department is relevant to the prosecution of Derek Williams and Mike Lorenz. The ongoing documented impunity in stalking in helicopters at the same time that I'm uploading the evidence on the internet, the absence of a coincidence that's happening over and over and over, that's going to be used in the prosecution of Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams with regard to being domestic terrorist leaders, not police chiefs, who are also not ignorant, actually, nor reasonably ignorant about what is clear targeting in furtherance of torture, threatening, intimidating conduct, in furtherance of murder, because there's greater context. The entity is gang stalking with the people of the state to kill that person. That's why they've engaged in what is lying, just like they clearly are. My evidence of this department lying about every time they're in my presence, about what is freedom of speech rights. Not only that, it's not only freedom of speech. The government, the bottom line, the foundational principle here is that the government has yet to be actually proven to be engaged in what I've already proven. It's never been proven before. That doesn't mean that it's not wrong, and it doesn't mean that it's not a crime. So this is the formal process whereby that is being established, and it's going to be established in law. They're going to be liable under the law. So you remain on the wrong side of the law, regardless of whether or not you've actually faced that penalty before, and that's because it's the government that is corrupt. They've been entirely uncooperative in that endeavor the entire time, and that's understandable because they are corrupt. However, that does not remove what is your liability under the law for that which you have sought to obstruct justice for. The entities engage in this conduct, and it's relevant to how maniacal that it is, how corrupt that it is, how life-threatening it is. The entities engage in this conduct, and you're not on the wrong side of the law while you're exposing a government that's being a criminal. It's as plain as that. You're engaging in criminal activity, and then you're engaging in more criminal activity to obstruct justice and conceal the fact that you're engaged in criminal activity. There is no law that is ever going to make what is this is not vigilante justice that I'm engaging in. This is not engaging in criminal activity in order to assert your rights against the government. This isn't promoting anarchy. This is not in responding with lawlessness to lawlessness. You don't like that you're a criminal and you're being exposed for it. And that is not a violation of the law, period. In addition to that, under the law, because I do know it, it is a freedom of speech right. While I have to actually I do have to inform because these demons can't even spell Constitution, all right? They don't understand the doctrine of reasonable suspicion and probable cause. They literally give themselves authority based on what is criminal surveillance, not law enforcement. And if they say it happened, then that's what they rely on. They make it up in real time. Okay, and that doesn't work very well with me because all I'm doing is now I know everybody knows that everyone that's listening knows that they're lying because I'm documenting. But while they're engaging in lying, I engage in what is a real time and which you have a right to do. Oh, okay. So who is it that told you that the X, Y, and Z happened? All right. And so where are they at? Because when you're engaging in what is making allegations, because I can prove my allegations against you. I have evidence, facts that prove that you're not only mentally ill, but that you're a criminal. And this is a criminal act that you're engaging in right now. But they don't have the evidence to assert why they are in your presence, which the police under the law are supposed to have. You're protected from what are police just coming up and demanding that they take your time. That's a detention. All right, there are legal prerequisites for that. The entity makes that up. That does not make it authoritative under the law. That is right there, the criminal act where the entity is doing it. Remember, it's not just a civil suit. That would be absent gang stalking. That's even not a criminal act. That's tortious. It's unlawful. You have a right to not be subject to that, even a pattern of that. But this is in furtherance of murder. That's a criminal act. This is all escalated because it's upon facts of federal group stalking and monitoring, gang stalking. Okay? You're doing that to accomplish murder. You're doing that to fabricate circumstances and manufacture mental illness, a criminal record. Trying to fit into a narrative regarding things like a fake conservatorship as to why you are engaging in things like kidnappings. That's not a false arrest. That's a kidnapping upon facts of federal group stalking and monitoring. That's a threat to your liberty and your life, your well-being. The same demons that are stalking you with light and then hysterically laughing about it. Highly mentally unstable. No, they cannot spell Constitution. They have no concept of what reasonable suspicion and probable cause is. They're not engaged in law enforcement. They're engaged in criminal surveillance. That's why they don't have the training. Because they're not engaged in law enforcement. That's the fundamental issue, and it is not a criminal act. You don't like that you're a criminal, and you don't like that you're being told what's not going to be anymore. You don't like that, and nobody cares, Satan. You don't get a vote. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and they do so exposing mental illness. The more that I document, that's the prosecution of Mike Lorenz, including while demons are stalking me with commercial planes. That's the prosecution of Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams. And their mental illness is put at the forefront of that controversy. Your mental illness is put on full display while you're stalking somebody as a whole agency, the operation of the whole police department. You're doing that while you're wearing uniforms and making up tales as to why you're in somebody's presence. This is the entity that's doing so. Again, this is following from Starbucks. Remember, as I'm nowhere near Starbucks now, and this is where the entity is maintaining that P.O.C. of what is stalking with planes. This is exactly the pattern of conduct that the City of Ontario, the entirety of the City of Ontario, including the demons of the Ontario Police Department. And while their mental illness is what is informing their criminal activity, their mental illness is also the reason why they are incriminating themselves, because you're not accomplishing the original objective, and you're certainly not doing it in secret. And that same mental illness is the reason for the ability to prosecute terrorists like Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams. This is what Michael Moore and Dominic Choi, 2024, resigning, Michael Moore coming in the interim to maintain surveillance and furtherance of murder, Dominic Choi. And that's all a matter of evidence. This is in concert with the Los Angeles airport, LAX, while the entity is maintaining a fake sun rising and setting. And when I'm documenting the same pattern of conduct, when the entity is covering up the fake sun, which is the relevant to what is not the natural environment, the entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct of covering up a fake sun, which is never forgotten. The fact that you ever capture it over your home or where you're at for over 10 hours, even 4 hours. The sun is not some object that's rising on the east side of your home and setting on the west side of your home. On the east side of the street where you're at and on the west side of the street where you're at. Like I'm documenting, covering up the fake sun is never going to remove that evidence. These are demons that are mentally ill. A core aspect of their mental illness is intellectual deficiency. And that is because Satan dumbs them down. They don't have a brain. These are demonic spirits. These are inherently inferior creatures. So they're not using intellect. They're merely engaging in what is monitoring. They are engaging in what is animalistic behavior. And it is, in other words, very easy to outthink them and outmaneuver them intellectually. They're not engaging in legal reasoning when they're obsessively stalking. This is what makes it actually, surprisingly, ironically, very easy to prosecute Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams as an agency that's engaging in a very heavily documented pattern of targeting, in the same way that the entity is with the fire department, with the Ontario International Airport, with the people of the state. They share that demonic pattern of conduct. They share that criminal means of targeting, all in furtherance of murder. And you are going to prison. You're going to prison. That's not a suit for tortious conduct. That's a suit for conspiracy to commit murder. When those that are bearing weapons and exercising authority under the law, that they are given discretion, that they take an oath to uphold, then they're given unquestioned merit and legitimacy, meaning when they say that you've committed a crime, it's not going to be questioned. That's a threat to a targeted individual. When you are engaged in criminal surveillance, and the question is not if, it has already been proven that they're engaged in criminal surveillance. So that goes to every act that they have committed toward me, which has been corrupt, which has been malicious, which has been an abuse of the power and authority that they have, in concert with the demons that are stalking in planes, in concert with the demons that are stalking in fire trucks, in concert with the demons that are stalking in ambulances, in concert with the demons that are stalking as a means of what is public corruption, the very civilian population, the demons themselves, the people of the state, the mask that the government wears that's supposed to be cleverly disguising them, but it's not, because those demons are also the same animalistic group of psychopaths who resort to hysterical laughter while they're stalking with impossible light, while they are living, being, traveling, remaining under a fake sun. And when you engage in documented acts such as slinging light around, you lose all legitimacy. And that mask that the government is supposed to be hiding via you has been ripped off, and you are shown to be the same demonic entity. This is the entity that's going to be prosecuted. The entity that resorted to making malicious assertions. You lose that mask when the people of the state are making inexplicable and highly malicious, far outlandish, and overtly, obviously, immediately proven false claims. That's another means of identifying that they're targeting, in addition to their psychopathic behavior of throwing impossible light around. While they want to appear as normal private citizens that are just minding their business, and the targeted individual is just experiencing a mental breakdown in front of everyone. Okay? They're just hallucinating. They are just imagining it. No, that doesn't work under the fake sun, however. That doesn't work when there's a body of evidence proving that you have population of the population. Why are they all going around making up assertions, making up information? If I was really this bad person, then you would have the ability, you wouldn't need to make it up. You wouldn't need to make it up. And it would be very, very easy. Not only that, if someone is such a bad person, I wouldn't be able to uphold a body of consistent evidence of actually the police who are lying. And I want to be clear, this is when you're getting to what is a responsible discourse. They are not police officers when they're gang stalking. This is criminal surveillance agents. These are co-conspirators of murder. That's what they are. They're terrorists. That's what that is in the United States of America, where you have the corruption of the executive branch. They are the ones that are enforcing and maintaining this surveillance system amongst a population with whom it is necessarily cooperating with, making those allegations, engaging in that criminal summoning, bearing false witness. This is how that system works. And the entities engage in that through all functions of the government. This is where the terrorists of the fire department, the terrorists of the medical profession, the terrorists of the civilian population, and that's exactly what you have when you have a neighborhood full of demons that are slinging light, that are keeping your genitalia under surveillance, that are stalking you everywhere and regarding everything that you do. They're sitting around with nothing to do in their lives. You don't even care about your kids while you're gang stalking the target individual. They just carry them. They're nothing other than a prop. That's a prop on a stage. They're all on a stage under the fake sun, covering up the fake sun for any amount of time during the day. You can have it rain for the rest of the year. It will never remove the evidence of what remains supernatural. And this is how you will prosecute the government that has been exposed. This is how you know what's going on out in Mississippi. This is how you know what's going on in Louisiana and in Texas. This is how you know what's going on in Minnesota and in Massachusetts and in New York and in Florida, because the fake sun remains over one person that documented it, and the ongoing harassment and targeting by that government that's engaged in what is corrupt conduct while they engage in a documented pattern of seeking to obstruct justice, because they thought that, first of all, they could engage in this conduct and it would be unquestioned. And then secondly, they thought that because it has not been in a court, which is going to be handled, but it does not, this is my underlying founding point, that it does not cease to be a criminal act because it has yet to be established as one, meaning because nobody was able to prove. It's the government. They're corrupt. And you have to be, I want to be clear, a specific type of person in order to effectively prosecute the government. And that's unfortunate, but that's the truth. You have to have your ducks in order. You have to have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to not only be able to do it, you have to be the right person to speak on behalf of one that is being targeted by the government. You have to have all of that together because it's the government. It takes a very special person. That's just the reality. That's not fair, but that's the reality. Not just anyone can do that. So the entities engaging in what is targeting while they are facing justice, and I want to be clear, you're going to prison for that. You're going to federal prison, not just for being a gang stalker, a terrorist, but then seeking to obstruct justice and conceal the fact that through a government system, you're murdering and kidnapping people and defaming them in doing so. You are defaming them while trying to depict them as a criminal. You're defaming them while trying to depict them as being mentally ill, serving your criminal purposes because you want to steal their money and property, because you're a Satan-worshiping demon who engages in sex rituals and homosexuality to harness demonic spirits, all sorts of mentally ill behaviors. That's how you address their spiritual darkness with their mental illness. That behavior that is depraved, that behavior that's a threat to themselves and other people. It starts in the spirit. That's why you have medical professionals that are inadequate. They're incapable. They're not equipped to deal with what is actual mental illness or even address it, diagnose it. And they also have a tendency to target those that aren't mentally ill at all by just poisoning them, which they make money off of. That's not a coincidence. It's not the practice of medicine. They're drug pushers. Okay? The entities engaging in this pattern of conduct while you seek to obstruct justice. That is, in other words, going beyond what is my original thesis regarding the government that is targeting. The government is engaged in targeting and seeking to conceal the fact that they're targeting. That is the worst type of enemy of the United States. Like I said this before. If you're familiar, I've been maintaining this podcast for years, okay? So I have over 900 episodes. There's a lot. But I have already stated before, and this is the case. I at least maintain, not that I do not at all, and do not take offense, do not misunderstand what I'm stating, because I do not stand behind these government regimes that are inhumane, that are, as we would define it in the United States, unconstitutional, and what is absurdly, it's criminal with regard to your inability, your violation of who you are as a human being. The government doesn't give you your right. Okay, these are God-given rights to exist. all right, as a person, especially when you're not violating the rights of another, okay? These are God-given rights, and in this country, in the United States, we are purportedly supposed to be, at least on paper, one that acknowledges that. It's not government-given rights. These are God-given rights that are respected by the government. That's where you have this notion of privacy. That's where you have these notions of maintaining a level of sovereignty of oneself, of your lifestyle, insofar as you're not violating another person. Okay, you have a right to go ahead and live your life. Pursue whatever it is you want to pursue. And this is the so-called American dream, but it's an illusion. This is actually what's happening in this country. And when the entities engaging in what is violating that, I'm stating that I have more respect for what our Securitas is gang stalking, the same demon that engaged in kidnapping. He's going to prison. The Four Eyes, he's going to prison. But the entities engaging in what is the pattern of conduct, and they're doing so while they are in other countries violating what are foundational rights under the Constitution. And they're doing so in ways that are overt, however. Like their nations, they pretty much they understand at the outset that they don't have freedom of speech rights. You can't just look at whatever you want on the internet. You can't just watch whatever you want. You can't just say whatever you want. You can't just put whatever you want on the internet. But they are, at the very least, they are upfront about the fact that you understand that your government doesn't tolerate this and they don't tolerate that, and you don't have a right to do that. It's not like that in the United States, at least not on the surface. Okay, we are given the illusion with regard to freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want. There are rights. Okay, you can't use speech that's communicating what is an unlawful threat, something that is speaking to what is abnormal, and I'm not going to get into constitutional law, but I'm not going to go into depth with that. But there are limits on your freedom of speech. If you're talking about you need to go kill Congress, senator, you can't. That's not freedom of speech. Okay, you're talking about what is doing harm, and there are limits to that. But generally speaking, we can say what we want. Freedom of expression. All right, just because we have different opinions, that doesn't mean that I don't have a right to express them, and I do, and you do, and thank God for that, because being a Christian, being someone that is a Bible-believing, Christ-serving Christian, somebody that believes that they want to serve Satan, okay, you have a right to do that. What you don't have a right to do is engage in what is targeting me because you serve Satan. That's where you're crossing the line. That's what the government is engaging in, and the government is doing it maliciously. The government is doing it in ways in which I do not respect. Now, what I'm stating that I don't want to be misinterpreted is the fact that there are other countries, and I'm not going to name them, but at least they are overt with what they do not want their citizens to engage in. You don't have a right to you don't just have freedom of speech, which is unfortunate. But I'm stating the difference between the cowardice, between the hypocrisy of the United States that wants to also on the international stage present itself as being some moral leader. And we are not. We are not. When I am exposing what's going on, and I want to be clear, California, if it's happening in California, it's definitely happening in Alabama. If it's happening in California, it's happening in New York. You can be clear on that. If it's happening in California, it's happening in Florida. It's happening in Nevada. It's happening in Texas. It's happening throughout the country. You know that it's happening. Okay, science tells you that it's happening because while I'm documenting and showing you the environment that's around me, there's only one sun. It's exclusive. And the sun is engaged in what is a tremendous orbit. There's a whole Earth, okay? There's a whole galaxy. And I'm documenting it remaining over me on one block. And this is just as of late because I've been at the 53703 Good Avenue F Street to OVITT Family Community Library C Street. And it's the same body of evidence, the same consistent evidence when I'm at a different venue. For example, Tracy Banks' apartment, Woodside Senior Apartments. That fake sun remains over in even more exclusive sky space from the east side of that apartment building, units 38 through 64. It does not exceed beyond that apartment building. From the east side of Tracy Banks' apartment door number unit 51 and to the west side of Tracy Banks' apartment door, the same unit 51, and it does not exceed beyond that apartment complex where the demons are just pacing on the sidewalk, where the demons are pacing using commercial planes that are heard inside of the apartment. There's no question about what it is that I documented. The entity is stalking by helicopters that are heard inside of the apartment, that are flying over the top of my head, that are flying in circles over that apartment, that do so while I'm uploading evidence onto the venue of the internet, while I'm talking about anything that the demons that are keeping me under surveillance are particularly triggered by, while the fake sun remains over. There's one sun. And while you see that evidence of the environment, you know what's happening in Kentucky. You know what's happening in Nebraska. You know what's happening. Because it could not possibly be the natural environment. This is speaking to the demon-possessed that are filling the government, engaging in what is a whole illusion regarding a constitutional construct for the system. And they're all listening to me expose it. They've also witnessed their exposure because while I prosecute the state of California, this is establishing precedent. This is the United States government. What is the president standing under? What is the head of the FBI standing under when they are giving you speeches and talking about the developments in their latest meeting? They're standing under a light source, but at the same time it's remaining over me. Well, these demons are stalking in Ontario, California. What are they standing under? There's only one sun. There's only one. And the fake sun that's on the east side of the OVITT Family Community Library is not also at the same time in what is New York for you to see it over the top of your head. This is common sense. That's not the same light source. The same sun, when I'm looking in the east direction and I'm looking at this light source, when I turn in the opposite direction, in the west direction, it's not on that side of that direction where I'm facing west, obviously. It is not ubiquitous. It is not everywhere at all times. That's why it's on the east to the west. But what the entity is engaging in, the lower beings that are highly unintelligent and merely corrupt and demon-possessed. They're just obsessed. That's it. Their obsession combines with their corruption. And they thought that equals success. And the inability to ever be exposed. That's delusional. They're demons, though. And I want to be clear, even Satan himself knows that it is inevitable. But the demon-possessed that are deceived by Satan, they don't perceive that. They don't. Their minds are gone. This is actual mental illness when they're engaging in hysterical laughter while you're being proven to be a psychopath stalking. And then you go home to your girlfriend or your baby mama or your gay lover and who are also gang stalking me, and the couple can't explain why they're stalking me together, right? But you're supposedly in a loving marriage, a loving relationship, but you're obsessed with my vagina. You're keeping my genitalia under surveillance. You are sitting on the side of the road stalking, listening to me breathe, listening to my points that I'm making about you, the same community that's gang stalking. You're sitting in cockpits, sitting around stalking in planes and helicopters, literally the act that is going to result in what is assessing mental illness because of the level of obsession. That's because of a spirit of mental illness that resides in them. And it is not invisible. It is manifest while they engage in gang stalking. It will be both the evidence to diagnose and also to convict. This is an entity that's engaging in this level of cowardice in the U.S., okay? The U.S. is engaged in what is wanting to falsely depict itself as some moral leader on the international stage when they are engaged in what is targeting its own American citizens. And they're doing it with those that they permit to be in this country. They are referred to as immigrants who are in this country, and they are engaged in what is state-sanctioned terrorism. They're engaging in that together. They're engaging in that with the entity that's witnessing its real-time exposure. The terrorists are identified as what are the leaders, those that are in positions of authority. Gang-stalking governors, gang-stalking mayors, gang-stalking city attorneys, gang-stalking city managers, gang-stalking city councils, okay? Gang-stalking airports, the ways in which your understanding surveillance is underway. Gang stalking fire departments and the entity that's using all manner of the city. So those that are operating ambulances, they represent what are terrorists, and those are associated with hospitals. They're engaged in what is targeting. This is literally the government at a local level, and they're supposed to keep contained this system. This entity lost absolute control because they don't have any self-control. And so they resorted to what are desperate acts that I documented. Oh, I'm yelling in the bathroom, right? Okay, well, everyone can play that tape back regarding what actually happened in the bathroom. And there was no exchange with anybody in the bathroom. In fact, you have them always seeking to maintain what is someone that's oblivious to my presence, is not paying attention. You're the least important person in the room. That's what they would like their behavior to exhibit. But however, at the same time, when you're not even looking at me in the bathroom stall, were you looking at me through the walls of the bathroom stall? Did you crawl down on the floor to take a good look at me? Did you say anything to me? And why would you be saying anything to me in the first place? Why are you assuming that I'm talking about you, including right now? Including right now. This is an entity that's being exposed, and they know that they're exposed. And you're very fearful while I give that very damning indictment while you're stalking in a bathroom stall. And I speak very powerfully when I am maintaining a very low voice inside of the bathroom. And I want to be clear, I don't have to raise my voice. What they hear is, the reason why you described it as yelling is because you're scared to death about the truth of what I'm speaking while you're stalking in a bathroom stall. That's why you described it. I want to be clear, that's why they described it as yelling. Because it is pursuant to criminal summoning, but that's how fearful they are. I might as well have screamed it, because that's how loud their prosecution is. That's how loud that impending doom is. Okay, that's relevant to the entity that's engaging in what is making allegations that are clearly false. And why do you have to make that up in the first place? Oh, because probably you have a pattern of targeting, and that's probably because exactly what I'm stating is the case. You're not engaging in this conduct of making assertions, and the same assertions that they make are what they engage in. You have demons that are supposedly bullying me, coming in the bathroom, yelling, making threats to harm me. Well, they're not going to bust a grape, though, but they make threats to physically harm me. Where are the police when that happens? Don't forget about what happened at the OVITT Family Community Library. The entities engaged in what is making a scene in the library. The police weren't called on the people of the state. They didn't do any health check on the people of the state that are going around yelling at the top of their lungs, talking about they're going to physically harm me. I documented that as well. The gang stalking police that are speaking through that demon, that because they're hostile about my documentation. Oh, the police weren't called on that day. But when you're making up, yelling that I'm engaging in, oh, the police are called when nobody even saw my face. How do you even know what I look like? But you don't know what the person that's making those allegations that are hidden in a bathroom stall, you don't know who they are, but you know who I am. You know where I'm at, and you know what I did. This is an entity that's engaging in what is targeting in the way in which I described very vividly in bathroom stalls. The same demons that are stalking in commercial planes are the same demons keeping my genitalia under surveillance. And I said Lisa Goo, it's Julia Goo that's engaging in what is monitoring my vagina. Doing so while the demons are engaging in surveillance in a way that's going to serve to prosecute the domestic terrorists, Derek Williams and Mike Lorenz, who are maintaining criminal surveillance in the state of California, in the city of Ontario. The entities doing so while they are keeping the evidence against them, conspiring the murder of an American citizen, because that's the reason why you are engaging in targeting as a corrupt government. That's the reason why you engage in what are making up fictitious allegations that's supposed to then support the reason why the gang stalking police are then in the presence of the targeted individual that ordinarily doesn't have any evidence and also doesn't have any response with regard to being intimidated by police who make allegations, and you're not able to, this is the ordinary target individual who is automatically intimidated and doesn't have a response, doesn't know what to say, doesn't know their rights, and then will just cooperate with what is a defamatory act, some sort of health check, while it is monitoring, while the demons are stalking in helicopters outside, stalking in planes, they're gang stalking, while they come in and their audible activity is the form of, oh, do you feel like you're going to, when they are absurdly psychopathic. D. Ramos and Christ, under the fake sun, they're going to be diagnosed with the malice that came out of their face. That's malice. And it's impunity. While you're conspiring murder by virtue of being there pursuant to criminal summoning, which the entity needs the people of the state to commit with them while they are conspiring together under a fake sun. They're stalking as a population, showing their mental illness, and then they sit in a library all day long. And they show their mental illness as well, because the gang stalking is underway. You see the trails of the engineer light sweeping through the depths of that library. They're mentally ill. Mickey is mentally ill. John is mentally ill. Yesenia is mentally ill. Okay, the entities, by mentally ill, I mean these are demon-possessed psychopaths who may or may not have Down syndrome already, who may or may not already have some sort of brain deficiency that has nothing to do, and that is separate, and it's not stopping demon possession, which is the cause for their psychopathic disorder. Understand the difference, okay? The entities engaging in what is mentally ill behavior. You're sitting around, walking around on engineer light, sitting around, keeping your face in a book, while the evidence of you gang stalking, they're going to be diagnosed with it. It's highly unpersuasive, very unintelligent, and this is the mask that the government does not have because they look absurdly psychotic. You're delusional. You're sitting here gang stalking, and then they're the same ones that maintain that appearance in the obvious crime scene, and they engage in criminal summoning. Oh, you beat up the librarian in the back. When did that happen? Who did I beat up? Oh, well, we don't know, but we were called here, and you need to leave because you beat up the librarian, okay? And that's it. Don't ask any questions, okay? Get out. If you don't get out now, then that's exactly what they do. That's exactly what they do. While they're stalking in planes and helicopters, doing it under a fake sun, doing it in possible light activity. And this is the entity that's engaged in not law enforcement. There's no intelligent way to engage in gang stalking, by the way, because you have to make criminal acts against the target individual that's here to prosecute you, that doesn't commit any crimes, that's actually beating you at your supposedly witty game. I'm doing it better than you are. That's why you have to make stuff up about it in order to be in my presence. But I want to be clear, you're making up stuff, which is a criminal, it's a federal offense. You're going to prison while you're making up stuff with the police. You're going to federal prison. You're going to federal prison while you're stalking with the police. They do that on an ongoing ceaseless basis. You're going to federal prison while you are wearing those costumes, doing so in helicopters. You're going to prison. You're going to prison. You're going to be subject to routine examinations. Okay, the issues behind hunting an innocent American citizen down in a helicopter, that's going to be examined routinely. You're going to be subject to routine therapy, mental examinations. The entity that's engaging in what is seeking to criminally defend the target individual is the one that's projecting its mental illness that it knows very well that it suffers from. This is a suicidal population. All right, this is a self-loathing population. This is a tormented population, the demon-possessed. Stalking in commercial planes, that's the most demented behavior that you can engage in, aside from stalking in a helicopter. And you're doing it under a whole fake sun. This is a whole stage that a whole population of people are together under, and it's lights, camera, action, go. They're all acting while they're stalking together, and it's poor acting. And I've broken down for you. Here's the evidence that they're all acting. There's the engineer light. Here's the evidence that they're all acting. There's the fake sun. Here's the evidence that they're all acting. Here you are again with the same scene. Why is it everywhere that I'm going, no matter what apartment, no matter what hotel, no matter what property, why is there always a helicopter flying over the top of my head? Why? That's. I just want to be clear on its face. The entity is going to be that's actionable, and there is no law. By the way, I stated this before. There is no law that exists currently that you cannot prosecute for stalking, criminal stalking, even when you're doing it in a helicopter. It is harassment. And when you have a pattern of conduct to prosecute for harassment, that would include even if you're doing it through a helicopter or helicopters, planes and helicopters. There's no law that says you can't prove that. The entity is engaged in delusional behaviors. This is because they murder and kidnap their victims that never have a voice. That's the only reason why this, I'm going to use this term, this retarded system is even in existence, because it's not intelligent at all. The entity is stalking at 537 North Euclid Avenue, where Starbucks is engaged in the P.O.C. As I document Starbucks that's gang stalking today and going to federal prison for kidnapping on July 4, 2025, the entity is stalking over E Street and Euclid, doing so by flying over, and you can hear that on my podcast while I'm reading their license plates. That's at what is E Street, stalking by flying over the storefronts like I described before they engaged in what is stalking. As I go south, so does a plane activity. And the entity is engaging in this while I am engaged in documentation. That's an unlawful threat to your life. The entity is, in other words, stalking you, seeking to murder you. That's essentially I'm running, and you're chasing me down, you're stalking me, and you're stalking me with a weapon in your hand, and you're trying to while I am also holding my phone while I'm running, I'm trying to call someone for help, and you are chasing me down with a knife in your hand, trying to kill me, and you're trying to interfere with my ability to report you while you're chasing me down, trying to kill me. That's essentially giving you an illustration regarding what is the threat posed by a gang stalker that is targeting you with the intent to obstruct justice, wanting to muzzle you and stop you from telling anybody that they're trying to kill you. That's what they're doing when they're gang stalking. They're trying to kill you. They're gang stalking in furtherance of murder. That's the goal here. Murder as an entity. You can ask Jason Fields and Tracy Banks about the details of that. The entity that's engaged in what is attempted murder, the entity that's engaged in solicitation of murder, the entity that's engaged in stalking you through a police department like Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams, Dominic Choi, Michael Moore, the entity that's engaged in the gang stalking chiefs that I've documented from city to city, Alan San Victor's. This is the entity that's gang stalking in Monrovia, the Monrovia Police Department. You don't resign out of that federal case. You can resign all you want. You can resign and move to Hawaii. The long arm of the federal law is going to find you because it's a matter of record. That's why I documented it. The terrorism that you committed. You're not getting out of a federal case for terrorism in the United States. That's Satan that had you thinking that you were going to get away with it and that I was going to be dead and no one's ever going to hear. You're going to make money off of my intellectual property, and you're also going to make me look like I'm crazy and no one's going to listen. That was all fables told by Satan, who was laughing at you, by the way. Satan is laughing at you. You're going to prison for terrorism in the United States, as it is understood that terrorism is executed in the United States with regard to a malicious, the exploitation of the Constitution, both used and abused by the government and exploited by the people of the state who want to maintain what is the constitutional privileges and privacy while engaging in what is the conduct on behalf of a public entity that doesn't have those same privacy rights, that's maintaining criminal surveillance. You're doing so in concert with that government. You are outside of the shoes of any private citizen, and you're going to be prosecuted accordingly. There's no privacy with regard to the public entity. The public entity maintains information available to the public about any and everything that it's doing, including surveillance. And that's what the people of the state are doing with the government. You're not a private citizen. And when you're engaged in domestic terrorism, which is not an if, it's already proven they're gang stalking. Now we're going to apply this criminal system to what the people of the state are doing at every establishment, in every neighborhood, in every city. You're delusional to think that you have some constitutional right to gang stalk where you live. You're a psychopath. That's why you engage in hysterical laughter when you're being documented. When you're embarrassed for what you thought no one was ever going to know, you're delusional. You're delusional. And then when someone does know and someone documents it, you resort to laughter. Yeah, that's going to be noted when you're being diagnosed. It's going to be noted. And the entities engaging in this while they abuse the law, in other words. They abuse the law. I want to be clear. The entity that's gang stalking committed kidnapping at the Ontario Town Square, the Securitas security guard, September 28, 2025. And also in December of 2020, engaging in criminal summoning, targeting me while I'm engaged in documentation, minding my business, engaging in documentation on my device, not even talking to anybody. This same security guard, I believe he's Asian, chunky, wears black frame glasses, engaging in what is gang stalking, conspicuously stalking, harassing, and threatening my life and safety on a routine basis, including while engaging in kidnapping with the Ontario Police, pursuant to malicious and false assertions on September 28, 2025, where I'm subject to a battery that Securitas is engaged in via criminal summoning. All right. Doing so while you are engaged in surveillance, and you know very well everything that I'm stating and doing. So they are together then manufacturing information. Okay, this is literally the system. Okay, well, the police are going to arrive and say that they got a call for X, Y, and Z. And that's just what they're going to stand on. That's literally what they do. That's not law enforcement. It's criminal surveillance. Okay, but that's how that system operates, and that's what you're necessarily doing when you're being prosecuted by somebody that's not violating the law at all. When you're intimidated by my legal analysis, you're intimidated by my body of evidence, you're intimidated by my skill set, you're intimidated by my abilities, you're intimidated because I'm not intimidated by you, you're intimidated because I know that you're a demon, and I even have tangible evidence to prove to the world that the Nephilim are here, which is what you are. You're intimidated by that. And that's because you're dealing with psychopaths. Mental illness starts in the spiritual realm. It manifests in the behavior. This is not addressed in the medical field. They don't address that. They actually disdain God. Okay, but he is the giver of all knowledge and wisdom. And I will be clear, I'm not going to mince words either. You are inadequately prepared when you are one that disregards the existence of the true and living God, Christ Jesus. He is the giver of all wisdom. So you're already at a disadvantage, and you are incapable of actually doing good when you are engaged in what is totally disregarding this reality and based on only the carnal. You are engaged in what is quote unquote diagnosing people. This is how you are in a predisposed to defaming targeted individuals, to defaming people that are not mentally ill, that are suffering in ways in which you have no knowledge of because of your ignorance, because of your disbelief. Okay, so the entities engaging in, I just want to be clear on that. So it is. So it is what it is. So the entities engaging in what is mentally demented behavior, and that's because of what is in the spiritual realm. These are demons, and that is resulting in what is demented behavior that's manifesting in the physical. And you are able to diagnose that behavior, diagnose the person based on their demented behavior, and you need to know the root. It's because they are mentally, emotionally, spiritually sick. Okay, so this is where you get stalking in helicopters. The most terrorizing thing that a psychopath can think of. What's the scariest thing? What's the most horrifying thing? What's the most threatening thing Satan came up with? Stalking them in helicopters. And also a helicopter, the malice behind that is because you're in the sky space. So you're flying over in the sky space. And so then this is a false assumption, the false premises upon which gang stalking is imploding, and I'm prosecuting, because you have a pattern of conduct while you're flying in the sky space. Absolutely. But in that sky space, the target individual is always in that area where you're flying over the sky space, and the target individual can document that. Not only that, you're getting down to a scientific degree. In that sky space is where a fake sun is present over that same targeted individual. It's very detailed and specific. It's not ambiguous at all with regard to a malicious psychopath that's engaging in what is terrorism in a way in which that those terrorists thought was never going to be able to be proven. And not only is it proven, then they engage in what is committing serial kidnappings because they want to falsely depict the character of that targeted individual who already has the case against those terrorists that are calling themselves police chiefs and police officers. Okay, everything that the city is engaging in, it's going to prosecute the domestic terrorist leaders that are calling themselves police chiefs. I stated a couple weeks ago, the entirety of the system of federal group stalking and monitoring relies on what is the gang stalking police. And this is how you are going to target terrorists. The entities engaging in what is getting you in the system. And how are they doing that? Through kidnapping you through the police. This is how they're manufacturing criminal records. This is how they're then manufacturing what is mental illness. And the entities engaging, and I've been documenting how that system, how that corrupt iteration of that system operates. And it's all relying on what is a corrupt government that is relying on its surface level identity. Because an officer says it or writes it down, it's automatically believed. This is how they are engaging what is targeting. They're all corrupt officials. It's entirely corrupt from the beginning to the end. And you also have what is my proof of that, because you don't have the entity that is coincidentally engaging and sharing in what is targeting you and defaming you with the sheriff. So nobody is at any point recognizing, okay, wait, the target individual didn't get an arraignment. They didn't get a timely arraignment. They actually never even went to court. You just arrested them, put them on camera, showing them being taken out of the cell. It appears as though they're going, because when you see that on camera, the entity is assuming that, again, operating off of assumptions. This is a corrupt jail system. When you see that, they're going to court. It's on paper. They printed out the IDs for them to go to court. It's looking like on the surface that they went to court, and all they did was move you out of the cell. They drive you to the courthouse. They sit you in the cell in the basement all day long, chained up. This is inhumane. Criminal conduct, kidnapping by the sheriff, where you're not getting an arraignment, where you're not getting any court hearings, and then they drive you back to the jail at the end of the day. This is the entity that's engaging in kidnapping. You're not coincidentally engaged in that unlawful and inhumane system of seeking to obstruct justice, conceal your presence, conceal your identity, conceal the fact that you are there in that court, in that ward area, seeking to manufacture mental illness. And all they do is keep you in the uniform in the ward area, and they just keep you there. They just keep you there. But they're also doing it while it's willful blindness. because they don't have the convenience of stating, well, we didn't know that. Oh, yeah, you did. Not only are you engaging in what is pure violation of the law, but you are incapable of conveniently stating that you don't know who I am. I'm holding up signs identifying my California bar number, that I'm an attorney, my booking number. I'm stating the names of the judges. I'm stating the false charges. I'm literally identifying license plate 9BOY 907, gang stalking with the city. I'm literally identifying. And that's at, by the way, via Wells Fargo, and that's at 8:09 a.m. I'm literally identifying the penal code section that they are using in order to commit a kidnapping. Well, then with that penal code section, which has no correlation, where's the nexus regarding mental illness? How do I end up in a ward with regard to a false charge as I'm citing the penal code? I'm holding this up on signs. Signs that are large enough, legible enough, my spelling is correct, my syntax is excellent, and I'm just giving you details because this is the reality. The entity has no excuse whatsoever. You can't state that you did not know, and you also can't state it under the fake son. Shannon Dykes is engaged in kidnapping. He's not the only terrorist. It is Mike Lorenz, Derek Williams, Shannon Dykes. Okay? The entity is engaged in kidnapping in San Bernardino County. LA County didn't commit kidnapping, but LA County is the same public entity that committed kidnapping. Understand that. It's a superficial distinction. The entity, the U.S. government, committed serial kidnappings via San Bernardino County. But they're the same entity. That's why LAPD is engaged in the same pattern of conduct. Dominic Choi and Michael Moore are engaged in the same system of terrorism. Okay? They just never physically kidnapped me. They're still engaged in that pattern of conduct in furtherance of murder. And you're understanding what is a superficial distinction. They are the same entity. They're the same entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct while they committed kidnapping by the Ontario Police Department. The same entity. Ontario Police and Los Angeles Police, same demons. Same pattern of conduct. Fake son, stalking with a helicopter, unintelligent demons that think when you're flying in a sky space, you can't identify that you're being, that's a lie. Stalking with Wells Fargo. And on camera at the ATMs. Wells Fargo is going to be prosecuted. 9CAE 912. The entity is, the entity is maintaining amplified train activity. The entity was maintaining louder train activity that's relevant to their mental illness. When they're stalking with amplified noise, mental illness is being exposed. When they're stalking with impossible light, mental illness is being exposed. When they're stalking with planes and helicopters, mental illness is being exposed, okay? But Wells Fargo 240 North Euclid Avenue is stalking. And they're doing so through their gang stalking patrons, all right? License plate 9BOY 907 drives to the parking lot and then stops in front of the Euclid Avenue with their hazard lights on. And they're monitoring. That's light activity. And they're monitoring with the demon of the Securitas that's engaging in what is gang stalking. He's going to federal prison, and Securitas is going to be federally prosecuted. But nonetheless, this is the entity that's engaging in what is a superficial distinction. LAPD and Ontario PD are the same public entity when you're prosecuting domestic terrorists in the U.S. and the way in which I've defined it. Okay? Because you're getting into what is San Bernardino County, LA County is the same pattern of conduct. So you're getting into what is recognizing the U.S. government's pattern of conduct that's underway through the state, and they are unified through a pattern of conduct that is indistinguishable. Okay, the fake son that's over my apartment, over the top of my head at my front door at Alvarado Gardens is never going to be over the entrance of OVITT Family Community Library, and vice versa. It's mutually exclusive. Okay, they're treating the fake sun like it's the sky. It's over everyone, everywhere, meaning it's not orbiting, it's not moving from east to west. It's remaining over everyone, everywhere. If I'm not the targeted individual. But that's not possible, because in my same videos where you're looking at that, you're not looking at the sun that's over the neighbor's house across the street. It's clearly over the entrance of my head, over my head, at my front door at Alvarado Gardens, and I went to the extent to document that, and I documented it heavily. And then the entity that is, again, lower beings, animalistic behavior, more obsessed than they are intellectual. Very unintelligent, because they murder and kidnap and get away with it. They've never been challenged with regard to using your brain. You can't use your brain, and you cannot intelligently target me. You have to make it up. You have to violate the rules and the laws in order to do so. That's how you're able to prosecute targeting. They have to. They have to. And so because you're not dealing with a criminal right here. So you have to make it up. You have to go outside of the bounds of how the jails operate. You have to violate the rules of the court. You have to violate what are the ordinary laws of and the policies regarding probable cause or reasonable suspicion, making stuff up, while then you use that to engage in what is a kidnapping. while you're documented on the record stalking all day, all night, every day. You don't have any probable cause or reasonable suspicion. You're engaged in criminal surveillance. You're outside of what is the doctrine of where those policies, where those laws govern. You're not a police officer, and that's not a police department. And the entity is going to be prosecuted as the domestic terrorists that they are. And you're going to target terrorists like Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams. Okay? The entities engaging in this was Shannon Dykes. You're engaging in that pattern of conduct while I'm clearly showing on the cameras in that facility, yeah, there's no mental illness. At least there's not, and this is conceding their point. At least where to the extent to where you're keeping them in the ward as though they have some serious mental illness and they can't function, they can't cope, they can't have any. No, she's holding up signs, clearly identifying her name. She's recalling the names of the judges. She's talking about she hasn't had a court hearing in X amount of days. She's referring to the penal code in the section that she was illegally, she's claiming, arrested under. She's reciting a California bar number. She's reciting what is a booking number. This is speaking to what is recollection. This is speaking to details. That is directly rebutting the basis of you holding them in the ward in the first place. And the entity engaged in a pattern of that. That's willful blindness while you're engaging in kidnapping. And why? Because they're forcing that narrative, because they need that narrative, because they're engaging in the pattern of conduct. There's an entity that's engaged in what is attempted murder. There's an entity that's engaged in what is defaming my character. There's an entity that's engaged in stealing money and property from me. And they engaged in gang stalking me through the corrupt system that I'm prosecuting. And it is relying on what is defamation of my character. That's why you have that. In the face of all of that, that shows not only are you on the wrong side of the law, you know that you're on the wrong side of the law because that's unreasonable what they did. And I intentionally held up those signs in order to show that not only are they kidnapping, this is unlawful, and they know it. They're looking at my signs every day, and all they're doing is and why do they do that? Because they assume that they're going to get away with it, that no one's going to question it. And you're just going to ignore it. Oh, yeah, yeah, she's always doing it. She's just talking about her meds. She just wants her meds. She's always holding up those signs that clearly show that she's cognizant of reality, cognizant of the passage of time, the dates, the details of her confinement, what she should have been entitled to under the law regarding an arraignment, regarding the area of law. But at the same time, you have them in that uniform in that area. And also you're denying them court hearings. Keeping them in, that's in the inhumanity of just keeping them in the court cells all day until the end of the day, and then just driving them back to the jail. This was Shannon Dykes. This is what San Bernardino County Sheriff engaged in. Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams, the Ontario police, they can't commit kidnapping by themselves, and this is what I was stating before. In the same way that the city of Ontario is gang stalking, and they are it's serving for what is the prosecution of domestic terrorists. It is starting with the police. Okay, and the police that are exposed as domestic enemies. These are domestic terrorists. Okay, and they're being exposed. They are hiding amongst us and doing so by concealing themselves as being legitimate police departments, and that's no police department, and that's where you're focusing the prosecution. Those terrorists that are calling themselves a police department and they're engaged in terrorism, the government is relying on that aspect of the entity to commit the kidnappings, to manufacture that criminal record and that mental illness while you're targeting them for whatever criminal objective, to take their life, to get them in a facility, to steal their property, steal their everything, and everything else that I've documented that the entity is engaged in, that Jason Fields, Eric Spencer, Tommy Allen Banks, Tracy Banks have committed. Okay, that's criminal summoning, and Securitas is gang stalking with that. All right, that's P.O.C. And the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking pursuant to that audible noise. Okay, so the entity is engaging in this P.O.C., and it starts with the gang stalkers of corrupt police departments. They're the ones that are needed in order to commit what is kidnapping. They're the enforcers of criminal surveillance. They are at the forefront of prosecuting terrorists in the United States. Okay, Mike Lorenz, Derek Williams, Dominic Choi, Michael Moore, they are Osama bin Laden. With regard to foreign and domestic enemies, same situation here. That's what you're dealing with. And under the law, with regard to this country, there's no difference with regard to the threat, foreign and domestic. There's no difference here. Enemies of this country, targeting American citizens, seeking to then falsely depict, you are so barbaric, you try to then falsely depict that American citizen as a criminal or mentally ill so that nobody would believe that you're targeting them. You torture them, you stalk them, and obsessively monitor them as demons who are actually mentally ill, and you did that, then kidnapping them while pursuant to a corrupt system that you're maintaining because you don't want to be exposed, that's the entity that's engaging in what is gang stalking. Okay, you're going to be federally prosecuted as a terrorist. Everybody, the people of the state that are gang stalking, every business is serving to prosecute. I know this is what I'm stating. The prosecution of the people of the state, the entity that's inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, stalking in bathrooms, molesting with impossible light, engaging in what is stalking with noise, mentally ill behavior, engaging in what is malicious assertions, false allegations. Okay, remember, they're not just false, they're malicious because they know that they're false while they're gang stalking you. Malicious allegations, that is serving for the disbanding of kidnapping agencies like the Ontario Police Department. That is federal prison for gang stalking terrorists such as Michael Moore, Dominic Troy are Los Angeles PD, but I'm speaking specifically to the serial kidnappers of Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams, okay? That's federal prison based on the unlawful threat that that agency poses while they are acting in concert with the people of the state who are maintaining surveillance in concert with them. So the entity is engaged in what is maintaining surveillance with this entity. They're maintaining presence at Wells Fargo, which is the prosecution of that business. And it's the federal prosecution of the Ontario Police Department that are engaging in surveillance through the corrupt business practices of that bank, okay? That's maintaining customers with regard to presence in the path, stalking with light activity, stalking in the path. And I've shown you that ongoing concerted conduct. They're also prosecuting themselves. The people of the state, they're going to prison, but understand the entity is engaging in what is public corruption. The government's criminal conduct, the government's pattern of conduct is the reason for this corruption by the people of the state. And they will both learn. Both of those partners, those co-defendants, those co-conspirators of murder, they will learn when they both go to prison. Federal prison is mandated for engaging in what is kidnapping, for engaging in what is targeting and furtherance of murder. And the entity cannot do it without the people of the state. The people of the state are doing it on behalf of the terrorists themselves, who are the ones at the forefront getting the target individual into the system. Kidnapping them, that's the gang stalking police. Kidnapping them, that's the gang stalking sheriff's department. That's the gang stalking courthouse. That's the entity that's going to prison. Okay? This is why the entity is being, the target individual is being terrorized by demons that are stalking them with light, demons that are stalking them under a fake sun, demons that are keeping them under surveillance in the bathroom, demons that are making malicious assertions about them, malicious allegations, criminally summoning that entity, defaming their character, while you're keeping them under surveillance, engaging in an inhumane level of sexual violence. The gang stalking police is going to be prosecuted for that. That's terrorism, and that's identifying how that system operates. Okay? While the entities engaged in this conduct, they're providing a wealth of evidence. The entity that's gang stalking, flying over the Ontario Town Square, flying over the Economy Inn, over my hotel room. The entity that's flying over my head while I'm at Tracy Banks' apartment at Woodside Senior Apartments. The entity that is gang stalking by maintaining surveillance, criminal summoning, kidnappings upon criminal summoning by the state, which is how the entity engages in kidnapping you in the first place. They cannot do it without the people of the state because they are doubling as, they're trying to appear as how law enforcement operates. They don't know because they're not engaged in surveillance. You have to tell them that there's an emergency. You have to tell them that something's wrong. You have to tell them that there's a threat present. That's called criminal summoning. And when you're engaged in surveillance, understand, like I've shown you, surveillance is proven to you through the environment that surrounds you. So this is upon what is all surveillance. Now, upon this unspoken surveillance system, these are gang stalking police departments. They are exposed enemies, domestic enemies, terrorizing, targeting, pursuant to surveillance that they're not telling you that they're engaged in. There are demons engaging in that. They're not only engaging in surveillance using technology, these are monitoring spirits. Demon-possessed people who are mentally ill, who resort to hysterical laughter when you speak the truth about what they're doing and how they do it. Mentally ill behavior. That's what's crawling into a helicopter to stalk an American citizen in ways in which it presupposed that no one would be able to prove, and that no one, when they're done criminally defaming them, would listen to or believe. This is terrorism in the United States. And it's also a cowardice. The entity that's gang stalking through the city of Ontario, the fire department, the EMTs, the people of the state themselves, in their homes, on the roads and the highways, like I'm showing you the population that's targeting, they're serving to prosecute the gang stalkers themselves, the police department that are engaged in surveillance. And they do so as a corrupt agency that is fully intending to commit murder. There is no business for any police department to engage in surveillance in the way in which I have shown you the state of California is. They're doing it in furtherance of murder. And by the way, you're looking at them engaging in murder on a ceaseless basis. They do it under what are illusions regarding, now illusions meaning it's not an illusion that black people are not subject to racism, or that any minority group is not subject to what is a disproportionate treatment with regard to racist institutions, racist regimes, etc. But it is an illusion insofar as when you're given the reason as to why someone's life was taken, oh, it's because they're no. You need to understand, surveillance is underway, and people are being targeted. It's just let me break it down to you even more like this. I happen to be what is a spiritually gifted person, and I just am within a black woman's body. Do you understand that? Your race is really a detail. It is, if I were a white woman, they would be targeting in the same manner. You need to understand, in the same manner with regard to the pattern of conduct. Okay? Now, they wouldn't have Black Lives Matter with regard to distracting you on the news as to why the police killed a particular black person. Those are the illusions that are presented. Oh, Black Lives Matter, it's because law enforcement, that is getting to the surface issue, and that's not getting to the real root cause. This is surveillance. And these are acts of murder committed as an entity. The news is providing an illusion to you under the fake sun. The people of the state are bearing false witness, and also they're ignorantly speaking about what actually happened and what they observe and what's the issue here. They're doing it under the fake sun. They are conditioned, and they are also a part of this system, and they are also engaging in what is murdering people and also serving a false appearance of things as the way that they are with regard to wanting you to focus, in other words, on anything other than the fact that they're demons, on anything other than the fact that it's surveillance and that it's targeted, including its targeting when they are targeting communities in order to distract you from what is the purpose. That is targeting black communities. That's relevant to what is a greater cause, and yes, that's exactly what they engage in. They will welcome that scrutiny with regard to what is their purpose on a greater scale, with regard to what they want the discourse to be about, what they want the criticism to be about. They're fully engaged in surveillance at every level, including surveillance tactics, which includes your anticipated criticisms regarding the mistreatment of minority communities, okay? That's relevant to a system that is in operation, a system that is pursuant to surveillance of even your genitalia. Okay? Killing black people is a part of that. The harms that I'm suffering is not because I am a black woman. Understand, these are demons. Understand, this is the work of Satan. Now, while these racist bigots who are also simultaneously obsessed with my vagina, okay, that want to be next to me, stalking me in planes and helicopters, I'm the most important thing. I'm more important than your wife and your husband. They are also, again, deceived by Satan, distracted. Racism is nothing other than a demonic spirit, okay? It's the work of Satan on a deceived person's mind. Because you cannot reconcile both your racism, you supposedly hate me, I'm supposedly less than you or whatever, but you're obsessively stalking me. Make that make sense, okay? You want to call me, okay, you might want to, this is a trigger warning. You want to call me a nigger, but you're stalking this nigger. You're stalking at the same time. That doesn't make any sense. And they can't make it make sense either. These are demons. These are demons. And their conduct is not logical. It's demonic. It's psychopathic. Okay, their obsession is inexplicable, it is out of alignment with what they would state is how they actually feel. Okay, this is not about racism. This is not about my being a black woman. This is not about Black Lives Matter. This is not about poor training of law enforcement. This is surveillance. They're not trained to engage in law enforcement. They're trained to maintain a bully system of surveillance and those who challenge it to keep them in line. That's why they don't have the training, because it's not the purpose. That's what you need to understand. Okay, the entities engaged in what is defaming American citizens, claiming, oh, they were mentally ill and law enforcement needs training to deal with the mentally ill. The entities engaged in surveillance, these are murders, and you're looking at the evidence of what are murders that are happening all the time. LAPD is engaged in what is a car accident. This was on the news a few weeks ago now. And there was a car accident of a young man, I believe it was a Latino young man, and he's either on a bike, a skateboard, or he might have been walking, but nonetheless, he was a pedestrian. And he is hit by LAPD, who were speeding. They were speeding. I believe they had their sirens on. And so this is providing them on the surface. This is providing them the excuse, they are given the authority to do whatever they need to do, basically, in the same emergencies that you're seeing them abuse while they're engaged in criminal summoning. I've taught you the system. When they use those sirens, they're given authority under the law. They have to rush to the scene. They're able to speed. They're able to get through the lights. You're supposed to get out of their way. And so when you are harmed with regard to being hit by LAPD, and also it's ostensibly something that's apparently perhaps even your fault because you weren't paying attention and maybe you were in the street outside of what is the crosswalk and they had their sirens on, and so under all circumstances they're not going to be held liable. Okay, they're within what is their authority to engage in what is speeding, and you're supposed to get out of their way, and it's looked at what is under all circumstances unintentional, and based on their position and their authority, it's not going to be looked at as the murder that it is. I want to be clear. The entity that's engaging in criminal summoning sounds sirens routinely in order to engage in what is, first of all, criminal monitoring. They're engaged in what is surveilling down to the detail of your genitalia. The entity is engaged in what is taking the lives of American citizens that they are sacrificing as demons. And, by the way, greater context, LAPD is already on the record engaging in what is the demonic pattern of conduct. LAPD is engaged in hovering, psychopathic surveillance, okay? They're engaging in this while they are claiming that they are, while you're listening to the entity stalking by plane, you have a demon. This is a white male wearing a hoodie and some Daisy Duke shorts stalking as a population of demons. AMRs at the B Street in Euclid, gang stalking in the path, and the entities doing so while they're triggered by the truth about what I'm speaking. The demon possessed that commit murders, and then they're reported on the news as, if not accidents, things that the government are not going to be held liable for because it's just an unfortunate demise that the government is not going to be held responsible for because they're within their authority. But I'm showing you what is a system of criminal surveillance. The sounding of the sirens is pursuant to what is monitoring, first of all, pursuant to what is a corrupt system of surveillance, gang stalking when they're targeting someone, and that person that lost their life pursuant to LAPD using a vehicle, and this person expired upon LAPD hitting them while they were on a bike or on foot or whatnot. And the same facts relevant to gang stalking is what applies to the death of this American citizen in Los Angeles. Okay, the same facts apply. They're engaged in what is abusing the positions that they have to commit what are sacrifices unto Satan, killing people, actually murdering them. And when you are engaged in surveillance and when you're a monitoring demon, and they're also, I'm showing you, they're monitoring genitalia, they're not ignorant about where you're at in the crosswalk. They know exactly where you're at. They know whether you're pedaling on the bike with your left foot or your right foot. They know exactly where you're at. You are subject to massive surveillance, and this is surveillance underway by monitoring spirits. They know exactly where you're at the moment that you're there, and that is no accident with regard to what is the collision with a human being who lost their life while you are sounding sirens, which is intentionally done to commit what is the cover. To provide what is a cover with regard to exercising what is your authority to engage in what is speeding in the streets and what's an unfortunate demise of an American citizen that met that demise, while the government's not going to be held accountable for it because they're engaged in what is rushing to the aid of another officer or to the an emergency that's speaking to what is the necessity that they rush to get there, et cetera, et cetera. This is an entity that commits murder. They're not engaging in what is ignorance and they don't know that you're at the intersection and that you're accidentally, no, that was a murder. They do this under the fake sun. They do this in engineer light pursuant to heavy duty surveillance. This was on the news the other day. Well, not the other day, it was weeks ago. And that's the way that it's reported. It's the same with regard to the gang stalkers using commercial planes. They're crashing into the helicopter in Virginia or in New York. They're monitoring my physical movement. They're monitoring by stalking, and they have a wealth of resources to do it. Okay, they don't have any lack of planes to engage in what is hovering over me second by second. Every 35 seconds you have another plane. They have a surplus of planes available to engage in what is stalking me and maintaining serial stalking using commercial planes. You're not ignorant about what the targeted individual, about what American citizens are doing. You're not ignorant about what's in the sky space. When they are monitoring your genitalia, remember, they're engaging in the elements of monitoring pursuant to your movement. This ongoing demonic synchronicity, that's what's coexisting when they want you to believe that it's an accident, that it was an unfortunate, unanticipated, unintentional collision, and the unfortunate demise of an American citizen that just lost their life. And there's unfortunately nothing that's going to happen with regard to liability on the government, because they're sounding their sirens and they're doing what they're supposed to do. So they're going to conduct a quote unquote investigation. The investigation by the gang stalkers themselves, who are maintaining surveillance that they're not telling you about, and the entity that's engaged in things such as crashing into helicopters in the sky space, where they are at the same time monitoring demons, maintaining surveillance through these same commercial planes, hovering throughout the city, never engaging in what is actually taking off. They're engaged in what is crashing into a helicopter that they don't know is there. No, that's not an accident. That is a murder. That's a sacrifice. These are demons that are engaged in what is acts of terrorism before your very eyes. Now, when you're doing so, sounding your sirens, that's the entity that's going to claim to conduct an investigation. But you already know at the outset, and it's openly addressed in that newsfeed that you're given, in that broadcast on television, that when they're sounding their sirens, they have authority to engage in, and it's necessary that they are given that authority to, violate the ordinary speed limit and speed through the lights and use, what is caution. All right. It doesn't give you the ability to be negligent. All right. They're given, in other words, all manner of what is a discretion, discretion pursuant to what is criminal activity, however, because they're not telling you about surveillance, and they're not telling you that they're monitoring. They're engaged in demonic behavior monitoring, supernatural knowledge about what you're doing, and the way that you're doing it, where you're doing it. And they're feigning that. They're keeping that a secret, all right? You don't know that you're dealing with demons, and that they are not accidentally hitting each other. They're not accidentally engaged in plane crashes. They're not accidentally or ignorantly engaged in what is hitting people. They're not ignorantly engaged in what is targeting certain communities so that they can maintain distraction, maintain distracting narratives regarding what is actually going on with regard to law enforcement. That is not law enforcement. It's surveillance, maintenance of surveillance, a system. Okay, this is an entity that is engaging that. You do not have those same demonic abilities while you're then engaging what is a missight. Something happened with some sort of failure, some sort of inability to see the helicopter that's right in the sky space, and you're crashing into it. The plane and the helicopter, and I believe that was a military helicopter, and that was Delta Airlines. But again, regardless of whatever specific airline, and regardless of whether that is a military helicopter or not, this is speaking to a pattern of conduct. And you have relevant context that nobody is talking about this. Nobody. But my point is that they're not accidents. These are sacrifices. These are demons, and they sacrifice people. The synonym for sacrifice, they murder people. Intentional loss of life. Intentional homicides, the taking of another life with intent, malice aforethought. Okay? And they are treated as accidents. You're both gang stalking using commercial planes, and then you also want to maintain the narrative that you're engaged in what are accidents using these same planes. You're engaged in gang stalking, criminal surveillance, and you're also at the same time maintaining a narrative that you don't know where people are at and that you're accidentally hitting them on the roads and the highways, and you're exhibiting demon possession. You're stalking with impossible light. You're stalking with amplified noise when you're engaged in monitoring using helicopters. You're exhibiting the same mental illness with regard to psychopaths who are demon possessed, who are engaged in not just surveillance but monitoring spirits, and they want to also maintain the narrative that they're accidentally and unintentionally taking the lives of people. These are sacrifices, and that's what I mean with regard to what you're seeing on the news. Okay, so that's just giving you context. You're looking at it all the time. You're looking at what they also want you to look at, because they are conditioning your mind as well. It is a propaganda regarding terrorism that we are subject to in this country and in the United States, different from other countries that are overtly telling their citizens that they don't have freedom of speech. They are overtly terrorizing their citizens. In the United States, we are being conditioned to accept this, and it's going to increasingly become more aggressive. But this is Satan's tactic here, subtlety. Okay, subtlety that's increasingly becoming aggressive in the same way that you see Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams' prosecution in the form of more and more aggressive helicopter activity. The more that I document, the more that helicopter is occurring. The more that they're flying over the top of my head, just overtly. I have hundreds of videos of them flying over the top of my head, just stalking in plain view. That is going to be used for the world to, for the country in the world, but for this country to witness, where terrorists are going to prison. And Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams, they engaged in this for years, just willy-nilly. And it's going to be used to teach what is going to be the basis of federal prison of domestic terrorists in the position that Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams have, and Derek Williams, who resigned, but you're not resigning out of a federal prosecution. He was targeting me and doing so as a domestic terrorist, and I'm going to prosecute him. And he's a part of the same entity. You don't cease to be a part of it, but you hold that position, I'm going to prosecute you in that position, and you cannot resign your way out of it. And I have the evidence proving that you are a part of that pattern of conduct. You're not getting out of it. I'm going to prosecute you. So the entity is engaging in this conduct, and this is, again, the implausible and the inconvenient ways in which you're looking at what is the false narrative, the illusion that is presented to you. We are subject to what is terrorism as well in this country. It's just in ways in which you're not aware of it. It's treated in ways in which you're looking at it on the news, and it is also a form of spiritually attacking you, conditioning your mind. You're depressed by the news. You're learning about all these sad events that are happening. Oh man, that's so sad. They were hit, and then there's nothing that the family can do. I mean, could you understand, they have their sirens on, and they have to, you got to get out the way. They have to get to the scene. You're given all sorts of explanation that's anticipated. And of course, absent criminal monitoring, yeah, okay, when they're actual heroes, when they're actually doing their job, absolutely. That's not what's happening in California. These are vagina monitoring stalkers. They're gang stalking police. Absurdly criminal and malicious. They engage in what is hitting people with their vehicles, and then claiming that they have the authority to, well, not the authority, they're not stating we have the authority to hit someone. That would be admitting to what is essentially the intentional taking of a life. But they have the authority. They are protected from any liability because they were engaged in what is essentially what are the execution of the duties of an officer. We had our sirens on. We were engaged in what is going to an emergency that needed my presence there. I'm turning on my sirens. I'm speeding to the scene. Unfortunately, I hit someone. They die. Oh well, that's how that happens. The entities, that's a sacrifice, and they're monitoring. They're engaging in surveillance. They maintain a fake sun over me in Los Angeles. They're engaged in what is heavy-duty surveillance, and everyone is under surveillance. They know what you're doing. They're maintaining knowledge about, even as monitoring spirits, they know where you're at. And when you are hit by LAPD in their vehicle, that was an intentional act. That's my point. That's not an accident. It's not unintentional. It was not unanticipated. Okay? That is also very calculated. This is the reality of what they're engaging in. That's the same with regard to murder committed through the government that's using planes and helicopters to engage in gang stalking, and that same combination is where they're sacrificing American citizens. And then they maintain a hearing that the public is able to watch and listen to the questions, satisfying what is, again, questions that you have in your spirit, why this would happen to a large group of people, how they understandably, they already know as demons that are monitoring you and spiritually attacking you and feeding you an ongoing, consistent propaganda, conditioning your mind, controlling how you think and how you your perspective toward what it is that you're looking at. When you are intentionally kept ignorant about surveillance that you are subject to, and that congressional hearing is feeding a subconscious need that you have regarding an explanation about what happened, because all those people that died on that plane. And they're engaged in, at the same time, they're gang stalking using the commercial plane. Delta Airlines themselves, gang stalking co-conspirators of murder. Psychopaths, monitoring my genitalia. That level of what is synchronicity with my physical movements, you're not accidentally running into some helicopter. That's not an accident. You witnessed murder. You're witnessing ongoing terrorism in this country. And the demon-possessed are gradually progressing from what is subtle, from what is subconscious, to what is overt and aggressive. Okay, what the entity is engaging in is terrorism in this country, and the entity is an entire coward while doing so. Okay, and these are the demons that have been targeting me, and they were supposed to accomplish my murder a long time ago. That's not happening, and the entity's going to prison. But this is exposing domestic terrorists in this country, the hypocrisy in this country, the acts of violence, public acts of violence, the acts of terrorism that are then explained away through the news, explained away through the government maintaining some congressional hearing, maintaining some public hearing where they're answering questions for what was an intentional act of terrorism, killing a mass amount of people that they make money off of as well. Okay? Now, the entity that's engaging in this, the entity is engaging in this while they're targeting me, and this is how, the entity that's targeting, the entity that's gang Securitas, that's gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport, is the prosecution of Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams of the Ontario Police. Lisa Rogan of the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court. I believe that's the presiding terrorist of that Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court. And what is Shannon Dykes of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department committing kidnappings as an entity. While the people of the state are gang stalking, they're doing so pursuant to the government's pattern of conduct. While you're targeting with the state, I'm going to prosecute the state. And all those demons aiding in that ongoing terrorism, you're going to federal prison for kidnapping. You engage in criminal summoning, you engage in gang stalking. You hear these psychopaths now? They're going to prison and they're going to be subject to mental examinations while they are the ones exhibiting that they're sick in the mind. They're the ones that are giving that evidence. They're the ones that are providing the proof. And they're going to be treated like the unstable psychopaths that they are. It's one thing for me to claim it and then just me to capture criminal conduct. It's another for them to act in conformity to is on its surface demented behavior. Demented behavior. That's them providing that evidence. You're the one that's engaging what is wearing a security guard uniform and then claiming that you're observing what is harassment when there's not even a conversation, and you are on a daily basis under a fake sun amongst impossible light, engaging what is surveillance with that same entity and engaging what is kidnapping an innocent person that you're keeping under surveillance. That's a level of malice that's relevant to what is psychopathic behavior. That's relevant to the ability to clearly state lies, which is in conformity to a pattern of conduct by the people of the state. Okay? Engaging in what is targeting and furtherance of murder while you're making those false allegations, and you're doing so under the guise of being an employee at a venue. You're going to prison, and you're also going to be subject to what are mental examinations. That's a Securitas security guard. That's not a security guard. That's a domestic terrorist. They are here amongst us. And you need to know that they're demons. This is the prosecution of the government. The entity don't be distracted by my prosecuting the people of the state. My purpose in that is because they're going to prison as well. They're going to be prosecuted as well. They're going to be targeted as well. They're being deported. They're going to prison. They're going to be prosecuted as terrorists. It's going on their criminal record. That's going to forever affect them. You're not getting any government assistance. You can't just move anywhere that you want to. You can't just go and work anywhere that you'll never get past that background check. The entity's engaging in this, and it's going to inform not only federal policy, but also state and local laws with regard to how you are targeting terrorists. The entity that's engaging in this in the state of California is going to be prosecuted, and it is serving for what is the prosecution of the domestic terrorists. Those that are calling themselves the president of the airport authority, Alan D. WAPNER, co-conspirator of murder, the Ontario Airport Board, that's Julia Gu, Kurt Hagman, Jim Bowman, Alan D. WAPNER. That is the Ontario executive team. The entity is going to be subject to uniform treatment under federal law. Any gang stalking authorities that are immigrants, you're being deported. You're going to federal prison for conspiracy to commit murder. You're going to be held responsible for the terrorism that you are maintaining and facilitating by virtue of your position. They're engaging in this, and they are making money off of it at that. They make money as a domestic terrorist over a police department. They make money as a domestic terrorist of the president of the airport authority. They make money as an airport board commissioner or treasurer of the Ontario airport board and the Ontario executive team. They make money in these positions while they're engaged, and that's relevant to this country. The capitalistic endeavors that are where they are profiting from serving Satan, profiting from terrorizing American citizens, profiting from terrorism. Okay? The entities engaging in this, and they do so with the people of the state that are aiding in that. Demons, by the way, for example, on a lower level, these demons that are being paid out of money that was stolen from me. Gang stalkers that are being paid money that was stolen from me, and these demons are being paid from my money and property. while they're gang stalking. And guess who's going to be prosecuted for? Guess who's going to federal prison? Where you're found guilty for engaging what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture as a domestic terrorist, not a police chief. That malicious masquerade is committed in furtherance of murder. You're going to prison for that, where you are found beyond a reasonable doubt guilty. And I want to be clear, Mike LORENZ is guilty to a scientific degree. Okay, that agency is guilty to a scientific degree. So I just want to be clear, the entity that's gang stalking with the state is the entity that is serving to prosecute the domestic terrorists themselves. The people of the state are engaging in the government's pattern of conduct. The people of the state are a demon-possessed population serving to threaten on behalf of that government that does use the entirety of that police department and all the resources of that police department in that city that's engaging what is targeting one person, that whom they are conspiring against. Making up lies so that they can commit kidnapping together. Making up lies so that they can facilitate and criminally defame together. And guess what? When you engage in that, you're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. Okay? The entities engaged in this, and this is what they've been committing as an agency. And there was a documented pattern of that agency in the Ontario Police, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court, sharing in what is kidnapping as an entity. And by the way, I have that entire entity covered with what is the evidence of the specific environment, exposing to you that they are demons engaging in that P.O.C. You have the fake sun over my head at the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court. You have the fake sun over my head at the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, West Valley Detention Center. You have the fake sun over my head at the Ontario Police Department, both in the morning, in the afternoon, and to the latter part of the afternoon after 4 p.m. Okay, where that entity is exposed as demons and they're engaged in state surveillance, including at that police department. It is a crime scene under the fake sun. That's exposing the reality of what is targeting. And you are targeting, while I'm throughout the city of Ontario, subject to what is ongoing documented acts of harassment committed in furtherance of psychological torture, sexual violence, and facilitation of gang stalking in furtherance of murder. That's a prosecution of domestic terrorists that are currently calling themselves a police chief. That's Mike LORENZ. A county sheriff, Shannon Dykes. A presiding judge, Lisa Rogan, who committed kidnapping in 2020. I said then she's going to prison, and she's going to federal prison. She's going. The entity's been engaged in ongoing gang stalking that she has permitted while she engaged in criminal defamation. Totally unfounded, totally unsupported, coming out of the mouth of a lying demon, and she's going to federal prison for it. Okay? The entities engaging in this pattern of conduct with regard to the government that's posing an unlawful threat while a population is targeting you. A population of psychopaths who engage in hysterical laughter when they're being documented because they're embarrassed that they are monitoring vagina, that they're all stalking together, that they are exposed as maniacal psychopaths who share in terrorism that is fully underway in the United States. Fully underway. Okay? This is P.O.C. It is currently 8:49 a.m. This has been an ongoing discussion regarding targeting in the state and all the ways in which I am documented, and I have documented how a government is targeting, including while the people of the state lie on you. That's the entity that's targeting you. Okay? The entity is doing so under the fake sun. That's the entity that's targeting you. The entity that is stalking you and molesting you with impossible light, that's the entity that's targeting you. The entity that's engaging in what is harassing acts of violence pursuant to this pattern of conduct, that's an entity that's targeting you. The entity that's engaged in what is stalking with the ongoing monitoring by the fire department, by the ambulance, EMTs, by the even the hospitals that are criminally defaming your character, that's the entity that's targeting you. Okay? This is P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, 8:50 a.m. That is the entity gang stalking in concert with the people of the state. You have what is the African American Carlos. You have what is third party gang stalking on the bench, which is to my left. That would be south of me. You have the Latino male that was gang stalking with the city of Ontario, where they're using costumes and cameras to engage in the exact same P.O.C. under the fake sun. And then he enters into the library gang stalking, and I capture that. He is with the cap sitting in front of me, which is west of me, where the entity is keeping me under surveillance, surrounding me with a bunch of gang stalking boys. Okay, this is on behalf of the entity that's going to be prosecuted for facilitating terrorism and conspiracy to commit murder. While this surveillance is underway by the people of the state in concert with the state that's using the city of Ontario, the Ontario International Airport. This is all on behalf of the Ontario Police Department that's going to be prosecuted. It's 9:24 a.m. at 224 North Euclid Avenue, P.O.C. Securitas is gang stalking like every other third party. The entity is maintaining serial care. The same exact pattern of conduct. When you see the fake sun shining, this is where the fake sun is at. It's covered up. Or they're maintaining the same criminal elements of monitoring. Traffic is light activity. Ongoing demonic pacing all around outside of what is Metro 102 apartments. Stalking on B Street. The entity engaging in criminal summoning. The Ontario Fire Department. 280 North Limit Apartments. The Downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments. And Securitas. This third party is going to federal prison. He committed kidnapping with the Ontario Police. 28, 2025. This is relevant positioning. This is the malicious iteration of the P.O.C. with the City of Ontario that's maintaining criminal presence through a gang stalking company. Securitas is also engaged in gang stalking at OVITT Family Community Library. The fake sun is at this venue where the people of the state that are domestic terrorists are maintaining criminal surveillance under the guise of what are gang stalking employees, for example. That's what the corrupt company Securitas and this third party represent. The City of Ontario is conspiring murder together. License Z8019 or Z8013. That's a handicap license plate on Tesla. Gang stalking via Wells Fargo. This is the means of what is stalking in the path with light. This is what I'm documenting last night while driving in and out of that garage. I'm not going to be touched with your headlights. Their brake lights aren't going to touch me either, not on a cloudy day nor at nightfall. The entity is engaging what is stalking with light, stalking in the path, stalking with the entity that's maintaining aerial surveillance flying right here. Okay, Rob, that's Robert and Carlos and the Latino male that are gang stalking right here on the opposite side of my person. Securitas is gang stalking. They are together engaging what is monitoring, and this is a threat to your life, safety, and well-being. Doing so while they have already committed kidnapping as an entity, while they're engaging in this criminal conduct, and this third party is going to prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:10 a.m. License plate 7NYN, license 7YNY 765. License plate 5MBN 577, 7ADL 006, 8SVA 044, 7GKC 474. 5NOZ723, 9MFJ382, 7JGS071. Rob, Carlos, Securitas security guard, the people of the state, gang stalking with by having children at the playground, the entity that's maintaining traffic. This is all means of criminal presence in the path, stalking by the government, engaging in what is criminal monitoring, while the entity is maintaining serial flight over the town square at 224 North Euclid Avenue. This is at 10:43 a.m. P.O.C. Alright, I do want to document Tracy Banks engaged in what is criminal monitoring. She's here under the fake sun as I'm documenting on video yesterday during the 1 p.m. hour. And she is present, arriving in the specific environment, monitoring in concert with the people of the state at the OVITT Family Community Library. I am on the computer station where all of the entity knows that. That's why I'm able to capture the fake sun in perfect alignment with me, where I sit inside of this library, which is impossible light activity. It's also an impossible placement of an ever-enduring fake sun. She is present at 3 p.m. giving me mail, which again, as an adult, as someone that is not listing her on anything regarding an address, regarding maintaining my own address, my own mailbox in Glendale, which is of record with DMV, recently changed to an Ontario address not inclusive of Tracy Banks, and not listing her as an address as of 2024, actually, when I relocated to Los Angeles, where all of the entity, the state, is maintaining criminal surveillance. In other words, aware of where I'm at.
Tracy Banks is stating she does not know why she's receiving mail in my name, and also she doesn't know anything about it, of course. This is the P.O.C. regarding the government that's engaged in monitoring, sending mail to Tracy Banks, who was a third party. This is also the entity, I want to be clear, that's engaging what is sending information. The gang stalker, San Bernardino County, 1627 East Holt, that's engaged in criminal surveillance, is engaged in what is violating my privacy, both engaging in surveillance and the which is criminal, and it's a violation of my privacy as well, because they're sending information that is personal in the mail. That's the gang stalker USPS as well, that's engaged in the pattern of conduct, sending mail to Tracy Banks where there is no record where Tracy Banks is even listed. My address is in Los Angeles. It's listed in Glendale, and also it is not including Tracy Banks. So in other words, the entity would have the absence of any mail address as opposed to including Tracy Banks's Woodside Senior Apartments address. The entity is gang stalking me at Woodside Senior Apartments, however. So again, actually the entity knows exactly where I'm at. I'm speaking to what the entity is doing with regard to sending mail to her address and as of record, but for targeting and surveillance, you have no basis to be sending mail to Tracy Banks. So that's what I'm speaking to. Tracy Banks is not listed. I'm an adult, a working adult in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens. She's not listed. I'm accepting mail via my UPS mailbox where I'm documenting the pattern of conduct. And the entity's keeping that light source. That's surveillance. That means you actually know where I'm at. And that's also proven by sending mail to Tracy Banks, who was not any sort of recipient on my behalf. She is no authorized mail recipient, no agent of mine. She has no actual power of attorney authority. She's no conservator. She has no representation on my behalf whatsoever. And also the government, including, it looks like the IRS, that is speaking to an admitted criminal conduct by the Los Angeles County, which I'm not worried about. LAPD is engaged in gang stalking in 2018, where the entity is engaged in what is Federal Group Stalking and Monitoring Officer Umada, that's engaged in criminal summoning, and the entity is referring to this criminal act of federal offense for which I'm going to prosecute LAPD. That's under the corrupt leadership of Michael Moore while he's engaged in surveillance. This is the entity that's engaging in what is sending mail also to Tracy Banks at 408 West G Street, where actually there is no address where they would be able to actually locate. They should have sent it to Glendale. Glendale would have held it, and I would not have had it. The entity is sending it to Tracy Banks, where I'm subject to the pattern of conduct as of record. The entity is sending it to Tracy Banks, where they want me to receive it, where you don't even have any actionable authority under the law in the first place. But this is relevant to LAPD, the state that I'm going to prosecute anyway. So the entity is not taking any of my money. I'm going to prosecute the entity. I'm going to sue them. They're going to pay me. But the entity is referring to a criminal offense that is documented in the October 16th, 2000. Hold on, let me refer to that document accurately. 1 second. It is of record. It is the first documented act by LAPD. And it is October 16, 2018, I believe. But let me pull that up right now. And you can look at it yourself as well. What the LAPD is engaging in is pursuant to the pattern of conduct that the Ontario Police Department are currently engaged in right now, the P.O.C., and what the LAPD is engaging in when I am living in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens in the workplace where the entity is targeting. This is also relevant to the entity that's engaging in what is very foolish conduct, listening to me indict through my documentation today of the October 16th, 2018 log of events. The very first event that you will see is the criminal activity Officer Umana, serial number 34674 with the Los Angeles Police Department. And this is also evidence that this entity stole. I maintained the citation where he is admittedly putting the actual place where he is aware of observing. What are the details? I'm not going to go into the details of this. I wrote it out extensively. The entity is engaged in gang stalking and then engaging in what is criminal summoning via a traffic stop where they're actually keeping you under surveillance and you don't have any reasonable suspicion. They're doing it in the specific environment. In the video documentation that was already published online, the entity stole this documentation. It is missing from my record, my evidence. That's, again, criminal conduct of Michael Moore, who remains liable with regard to no ability to retire from a federal prosecution for domestic terrorism. It's also not a coincidence when you hear me referring to the LAPD and Michael Moore this morning, and Tracy Banks is bringing in mail that she should not even have any access to, that the entity does not actually have on record the the ability to send or should even be acknowledging sending things to Tracy Banks' apartment. But it is relevant that 408 West G Street is where this entity is engaging in criminal surveillance. So that's why that's actually relevant. But the latest address would be Glendale. Glendale that I do not any longer maintain. So Glendale would have held on to that mail and it would have been sitting there and I wouldn't have had it. But it doesn't matter whether I'm documenting the fact that I received it. The entity doesn't have any jurisdiction to engage in what was an act of terrorism through Officer Iman at the LAPD that are gang stalking on October 16, 2018. And where the entity is engaging in stealing evidence, you will engage in what is providing testimony regarding the criminal acts that the entity engaged in. And I wrote it out in length, at length. It's on my website. This is the P.O.C.wordpress.com. This is, again, also another tactic of Tracy Banks. When she gets scared, she'll get something out of her mailbox. Oh, you got this in the mail, and it's referring to a criminal stop by LAPD, a law firm that's engaging in what is criminal acts, facilitation of what is harassment, a criminal act committed by LAPD. No law firm is engaged in any sort of actionable case. You're not going to receive any money from me. I'm going to prosecute you with regard to monitoring while you're doing so. Remember, all aspects of that pattern of conduct is underway. The United States Postal Service is gang stalking, that LAPD is gang stalking, the Metro Courthouse is gang stalking. The entities engaging in all manner of this while they're engaging in that means of what is harassment. And Tracy Banks is even monitoring while coming in here and giving me mail that she should not even have access to. But this is, again, the entity that wants attention, and it's negative attention. Metro Court is engaged in criminal surveillance. The Los Angeles Police Department is engaged in criminal surveillance. Michael Moore on October 16, 2018 is engaged in criminal surveillance. He's engaged in criminal surveillance until his retirement date, which was coincidentally when the entity restarted stalking me by helicopters in 2024. To be exact, end of January, February 2024. This is when Dominic Choi steps in to maintain ongoing criminal surveillance, and I will be prosecuting. This is nothing other than a means of what demons don't, you can't intimidate me. The demons don't understand this, but they're going to understand it when they're in prison, okay? These are the types of acts that the I.R.S., this is a branch of the federal government that's also based in Rancho Cordova. They're a gang stalking corrupt entity. Okay, the entity is sending mail to Tracy Banks, who does not have any basis to be receiving mail, and it's also relevant to what is invalid because it's pursuant to criminal conduct by the state. All right, so that's the analysis behind that. I am taking pictures of what is, again, the entity showing evidence of targeting by sending mail to Tracy Banks. This is P.O.C. All right, it is 4:19 p.m., 4:17 p.m. criminal summoning. The City of Ontario maintaining ongoing monitoring under the fake sun that's at the same Ontario Town Square that it is when I'm here at 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. It's 4:19. So, looking back at what the City of Ontario was doing when those demons were wearing costumes and the entity was engaging in the same serial flight over the same Ontario Town Square where I'm located. Remember, it's not just at the venue, it's where I'm located at the venue. Because if I'm near the OVITT Family Community Library, those demons are flying over the 280 North Limit Apartments. When I'm near the downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments, those demons are flying over the Ontario Town Square, Wells Fargo, over this street area, moving, in other words, as I migrate north and south. The demons are flying, maintaining a line of flight over the square, speaking to what is stalking me specifically. Everybody else is engaging in that as well, while fake sun is over the same address. City of Ontario was wearing uniforms, using employees, taking pictures of them, engaging in that pattern of conduct, and they were doing that at 9:45 in the morning. This is the entity that's engaging what is, again, while they're caught, this is in furtherance of murder. This is mental illness. This is serial flight. This is the demonic pacing. This is the evidence of severe mental instability. I am taking pictures at the same time. You will see the fake sun, and you will see the demons that are stalking under a fake sun. This is hardcore evidence. This is tangible evidence proving mental instability, which is also a threat to the targeted individual. The entity's inspiration right now is not only gang stalking like the previous plane is, the entity engaged in what is stalking right now at this moment while I am in real time exposing what they're doing. A psychopath engages in more of that conduct in real time
time while they're being exposed. These are demons that pose a threat to American citizens. They will engage in more harm, more violence, inflict more damage while they are exposed. This is relevant to mental illness also while they're engaging in pacing. They're pacing in planes. The way the entity is engaging in psychopathic pacing, remember a freak weirdo that's standing in front of you going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. The demon possessed do that by helicopter, by flying in circles. There's a playlist on YouTube where you can refer and look at the tangible evidence of mental illness that the demon possessed seek to keep concealed. And it is shown and exposed to the pattern of conduct. The demon possessed engaged in psychopathic pacing using commercial planes, flight over and over and over and over and over again. And that's what the entity is doing. They're doing so under a fake sun that is here at 4:19 p.m. What I have already published on YouTube, what I have already published, even on Facebook, actually, I gave you relevant evidence that you already have access to. The entity is engaged in what is taking pictures of the City of Ontario employees that are engaged in state surveillance. Paul Leon is being removed from office. This is the bottom line. He's being removed from office. This is terrorism. You have employees on the payroll of the City of Ontario that are engaged in domestic terrorism, and the mayor is not ignorant of that, nor are you reasonably found ignorant of that, and you will be removed from office where terrorism is happening on your watch in the city that you are sharing residence with. You're a part of this same community. You're a demon-possessed, gang-stalking, vagina monitoring demon, okay? The entities engaged in this criminal pattern of conduct, the City of Ontario, these demons are pathetic. They're under the 9:45 a.m. fake sun at the same wall, taking pictures of demons that are dressed up in costumes, and they're looking like these are the most awesome, most radical, most spectacular, most exciting pictures that they've ever taken in their lives. They're gang stalking. The entities flying over me, stalking me, they're engaging in terrorism. You are not going to prosecute based on the demon possessed that maintains some sort of outward demeanor where they seem so focused and excited, where they seem so friendly and jovial that there's no way. That's not how you're engaging in what is an investigation for federal group stalking and monitoring. You are learning all of the guises of deception, all of the the presentation of mental illness. You're learning what malice looks like. In other words, you are not married to any particular image. The only thing that you are married to is the pattern of conduct, the elements of monitoring, the specific environment, which outweighs everything. Whether the demon is sitting there with a gun in their hand, a bloody knife in their hand, and screaming out loud, "I'm gang stalking Erica Spencer until the day she's dead," or whether they're wearing costumes and picking up toddlers and smiling with the mayor, stating that we just want to have a good time and we want to celebrate life here. Let's invite Christ Jesus today, tomorrow, okay? Let's have somebody dress up as Christ. It doesn't matter, in other words, how they are engaging in the elements of monitoring. The same Ontario International Airport is under what is the supernatural evidence, science, which is going to prosecute. Science is going to remove the gang stalking mayor. Science is going to disband the Ontario Police Department. Science is going to put Mike LORENZ in federal prison. Science is going to put the gang stalkers, the people of the state that like to dress up in costumes, and they think that smiling is going to rebut the evidence of you engaging in terrorism and furtherance of murder. Those delusional psychopaths are going to be prosecuted as the terrorists that they are. These are, again, gang members engaging in groupthink. If we all act like it's not happening, then it's not happening. But that's not how the law works. That's not how reality works either. But this is the conduct of the demon-possessed. Delusional. Okay? Delusional. And you cannot stand up to the height of facts. You can't stand up to that. And it doesn't matter how many liars you have. Guess what? The facts always ring true. This is the tremendous fall, the implosion of gang stalking. It is currently 4:25 p.m. and the demon engaged in what is making a decision to stalk again, speaking to malice, speaking to the impunity, speaking to the ongoing obsession, the determination to threaten, psychologically torture, and intimidate an American citizen that's documenting it. That's what's behind every decision that's made to engage in what is gang stalking by planes and helicopters. Every single decision that I'm documenting on an ongoing daily basis. Look at the documentation that's captured at 9:45 in the morning. It wasn't yesterday, so it may be the day before yesterday, which was the 24th, if not the 23rd of October of 2025. It wasn't yesterday morning. I believe it was the 24th then, at 9:45 a.m. And then I go to the library and I'm capturing the fake sun. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it was October 24th. And these demons are taking pictures under the fake sun that's over the same property where I'm at the same wall. And this is where the entity is maintaining criminal presence in the path. Okay, demons that are highly unintelligent. Demons that, in their unintelligence, that's what they're projecting onto you. They think you're stupid like them. They think that you are impressionable like them. They think that you're easily deceived like them. That's why they're under a fake sun where you can clearly see that. And all I show you is a screenshot, 9:45 a.m., 4:25 p.m. That's the P.O.C. That's state stalking. Okay, you're talking about taking on the fire department, the police department, the gang stalking city council, the gang stalking in the city of Ontario, Ontario International Airport, where the city has an airport. That airport is engaged in terrorism. That's how the city of Ontario's engagement in the P.O.C. has instructed you, has informed you, has trained you to recognize the system. This is P.O.C. It's currently 4:26 p.m. That's 4:33 p.m. The entity is stalking in concert with the people of the state, maintaining ongoing aerial surveillance. These are demons that are obsessively monitoring. So you're maintaining a means of amplified, audible activity in what is engineered light. And this is mental illness that the Ontario Board, the president of the Airport Authority, Alan D. Wapner, the Ontario executive team, that they share with the demon-possessed people of the state. The demons that I'm capturing, they're engaging in the pattern of conduct. The entity that's engaged in the pattern of conduct share in mental illness. This is a demon-possessed population gang stalking using commercial planes at 4:33 p.m. under what is the fake sun. And it is indeed October 24, 2025, by the way, where you will see the city of Ontario also gang stalking at the Ontario Town Square, a state facilitating venue of the Ontario Town Square that is engaged in criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder and facilitating that conspiracy to commit murder via gang stalking, which is state action at the venue, while the entity is also engaged in what is keeping the evidence under surveillance. So this is the entity that's conspiring my murder while engaging in the system of gang stalking, while targeting someone that is keeping diligent evidence about it. And the mentally ill are aware of that evidence. In fact, they engage in more violence while keeping that evidence under surveillance. This is relevant to the mental illness and the criminal activity that the city of Ontario, the gang stalkers, the terrorists themselves are going to be prosecuted for. It's 4:34 p.m. The city of Ontario is under the fake sun at this same town square, at the same location where I'm at, with regard to the fake sun now that you're going to see in the images at 4:33 p.m. That's speaking to malice behind the mentally ill's engagement in gang stalking. P.O.C. All right, documenting what is the people of the state. You'll see a demon walking two dogs, doing it in engineer light under the fake sun. You'll see an Asian couple gang stalking under the fake sun. Their linguistics are not an obstacle with regard to maintaining surveillance with the state that is engaged in what is making a U-turn over the Ontario Town Square. You see them engaging in what is making U-turns over the ARCO parking lot, doing so over Euclid Avenue when I'm at the bus stop at 537 North Euclid Avenue. They're engaging in what is relevant positioning and audible activity while you have a group of demons standing under the amphitheater, all stalking in the path, and which we'll pay attention to at what is 5:14 p.m. Look at the engineer light that's on the building of the amphitheater where they're all looking like they're concentrating and speaking with each other. They're gang stalkers. And this is the mental illness by a malicious population that are supposed to, on the surface, appear as though they're engaged in something else, focused on something else, oblivious to the target individual. They are all intentionally focused and engaged in hovering, psychopathic level stalking. That's why they're all there. That's why the fake sun is there. Okay, and that's understanding the investigation, the prosecution of a government that is acting in concert with the people of the state who are demon possessed as well. They don't want you to know about their condition as well while they're engaged in the P.O.C. Okay, this is how you have the pattern of conduct underway under the guise of what is the Route 66 car show, a food festival. All right. These are demons, and their focus is stalking one person, and that is me. And they are all very much focused on my most minute movement. That's what they're paying attention to. This is P.O.C. It is 5:15 p.m. Stalking by the Ontario International Airport, 5:29 p.m. at 224 North Euclid Avenue. That is the Ontario International Airport. That is gang stalking at the Ontario Town Square, and this is a state facilitating venue. And the entity engaged in what is keeping I documented the fake sunset, okay? Again, the entity that's going to be prosecuted as domestic terrorists: Alan D. Wapner, Kurt Hagman, Ronald Loveridge, Jim Bowman, and Julia Gu. It also includes the so-called Ontario executive team. This is, again, a deceptive misnomer. This is revealing what are a panel of domestic terrorists that are going to be prosecuted for conspiracy to murder an American citizen, that they are engaging in what is specifically targeting through the criminal conduct, the criminal targeting tactics of the Ontario International Airport in concert with the people of the state, whom they rely on to maintain presence around me, maintain light activity around me, in concert with that government that's also deviating. The evidence will prove that there are no airport operations that include hovering over the Ontario Town Square with this audible noise. This hovering of this plane activity is part of the ordinary, legitimate operations of a pilot taking off or landing at 2500 Airport Drive, the terminals, in addition to what is the scientific evidence that is also going to provide what is even beyond a reasonable doubt guilt for conspiring murder, which is the purpose, which is the system of gang stalking. Again, on the Ontario executive team, that's Atif El-Khadi, Karen Kavanagh, Angela Lauber-Conroy, Celeste Heinonen, Charles Miwa, Elisa Gray, Aaron Cello, Jamal Aviles, James Kessler. This is P.O.C. All right, the entity stalking by plane. p.m. Ontario Town Square. The people of the state stalking, parking around the perimeter. Wells Fargo, Unique Cafe, the smokehouse, the Mule Cart Smokehouse, the demons that live at the venue, just stalking by getting in your vehicle in the parking lot, stalking around the perimeter, around the parking area, the Ontario Town Square, and being on the venue. This is all means of stalking in the path while the entity maintains surveillance. It's 6:04 p.m. where the entity is engaging what is crossing path again by commercial plane at 6:03 p.m. P.O.C. All right, documenting ongoing stalking at the Ontario Town Square. The entity is not engaging in any of the things that you see when I'm, for example, at ARCO and they're flying over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, engaging what is making a U-turn and flying back toward this location over that apartment complex. They're maintaining position on the south side of my person, stalking, and maintaining serial flight, that beeline across the square, across the event, above me, south of my person, across the venue, stalking in concert with the people of the state. So this is facilitation and gang stalking while the entity is maintaining ongoing surveillance by commercial plane. That's what I'm taking pictures of. That's what you'll see. It's uploaded to the Google Drive, P.O.C. It is currently 6:37 p.m. and this is the laughable pattern of conduct by demons that are maniacal. They are wicked and mentally ill, and they are also highly unintelligent. You have the fake moon now over the Ontario Town Square where the entity is stalking by plane at 6:37 p.m. This is the fake sunset, and then followed by the fake moon that's at the same address. This is P.O.C. The entity is stalking by helicopter. I'm going to go ahead and capture this. This is the prosecution. All of this is relevant to prosecuting Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams for conspiring murder. And the entity engaging what is the ongoing pattern of conduct, stalking under the fake moon at 224 North Euclid Avenue, where I'm documenting the fake sun. The City of Ontario gang stalking all day long, maintaining criminal surveillance in the sky space in the specific environment with the people of the state. These are domestic terrorists, mentally ill under the fake moon, where the fake sun rises and sets, and that's the entity stalking Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams, conspiring murder with the people of the state who are stalkers. This is my shadow over here appearing at a distance. And here's my other shadow here. This is an engineered light, the same engineered light that the demon possessed are walking under, driving under, stalking in planes under where a fake sun is remaining at 224 North Euclid Avenue. This is the removal of Paul Leon from office. This is the removal of Michael GERKEN, who's going to be removed for domestic terrorism. The demon-possessed are stalking with light, which is the pattern of conduct by the mentally ill who do so as a population under a fake sun, and this is the fake moon at the same 224 North Euclid Avenue. This is P.O.C. That's the entity that is stalking on an ongoing ceaseless basis using helicopters. This is the outward demonstration of mental illness. This is mental illness that Mike LORENZ himself and Derek Williams, the demon-possessed gang stalkers of the Ontario police, suffer from, and they're going to be prosecuted, federally prosecuted as terrorists that are conspiring murder while they are engaged in state surveillance. Doing so using the resources in a criminal manner, engaged in criminal expenditure of resources while they're engaged in state surveillance and furtherance of murder and not law enforcement. This is P.O.C. It's also criminal facilitation of state surveillance. Okay? Every venue around is engaged in surveillance while the entity is stalking in a helicopter. And again, the impossible light activity such as my shadow that's behind me and my shadow that is in front of me. Let me zoom in so you can see again. This is my shadow that's appearing at a tremendous distance away from me and behind me. This is relevant to the malice of the entity that's engaged in surveillance as a population, doing so with those under the age of majority, doing so under things such as the fake sun and the fake moon that's at the address where the demon possessed are engaged in what is terrorism, stalking, flying in a circle. These are the demons that are engaged in ongoing menacing conduct of such as stalking in that helicopter. That's the entity that's doing so in concert with the Ontario International Airport. Okay, P.O.C. It is currently 6:40 p.m. This is the prosecution of Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams being prosecuted for the kidnappings that were committed in furtherance of murder and kidnapping as an entity that seeks to obstruct justice for the ongoing investigation that I'm publishing as well, P.O.C. All right, I'm capturing, as you can hear, the podcast. The entity stalking by plane, immediately engaging in using what is helicopter activity, maintaining that ongoing threat posed by an entity that is acting, and that's, again, relevant to the people of the state. Engaging in gang stalking, as I'm showing you, stalking with a possible light, that's the prosecution of the Ontario Police Department. That's a prosecution of the government. The entity stalking by commercial planes, that's a prosecution of Mike LORENZ, the Ontario Police Department. The entity stalking under a fake sun, that's a prosecution of the Ontario Police Department of Mike LORENZ. It's all relevant to the mental illness of that demon-possessed population that is sharing in that P.O.C. This is where the fake sun is present and the fake moon is rising up present over this same property. This is where the entity is engaging in what is maintaining a whole isolated universe relevant to where I am being targeted by that government using planes and helicopters, and doing so under what is the circumstances of targeting by the people of the state. They're going to prison. The Securitas and security guard engaging in what is gang stalking with the city of Ontario today. He's going to prison. He committed kidnapping with this gang stalking agency. The demons at the OVITT Family Community Library, they committed kidnapping pursuant to what is, again, mentally ill behavior. The audible activity that is on the record that D. Ramos and Chris are mentioning under the fake sun with this agency that is stalking day and night under a fake sun and a fake moon. They're going to be mentally assessed, and they're also going to be prosecuted. They're going to federal prison. This is criminal summoning. This is ongoing stalking in furtherance of murder. They engage in that criminal summoning conduct to intimidate, to threaten, while your life is under threat. They're bearing weapons while they're monitoring you in furtherance of ultimately murdering you, and your life can be taken like that. They engage in this on a daily basis, and then it's reported on the news as an unfortunate demise or some mysterious happening of someone that you don't know that's being targeted, and these are demons that are engaging in what is murder while they're monitoring that person whose life they took, and their liability for that life that is taken intentionally is they're protected from liability because of the positions that they hold, and they're engaged in surveillance, not law enforcement. The entity is going to federal prison for kidnapping and for criminal summoning, every iteration that I've documented, and they're also going to be prosecuted, Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams, for being the exposed domestic terrorists that they are. That's relevant to the entity stalking. In the same manner that the Ontario International Airport has been since I exited the venue at what is 4 p.m. and the entity kept the fake sign, set it here at the same venue where you see the city of Ontario gang stalking at 9:45 in the morning. You see the fake sign over me at this venue at 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. That is the non-movement of a fake sign where the mentally ill are exposed and domestic terrorists are revealed. And they are calling themselves the Ontario Police Department, calling himself a police chief. He is no police chief. He is, first of all, mentally ill. He is a psychopath. He is actually mentally ill, and this is evidence that I have demonstrating that. This is relevant to the mental health that's going to be at the forefront of Mike LORENZ's criminal prosecution, and it's the same with the domestic terrorist Derek Williams. The entity is sharing in this criminal pattern of conduct with regard to the entirety of the state of California. It is currently 6:43 p.m. This is P.O.C. Ontario Police, stalking, 6:50 p.m. Flying over the top of my head again. Stalking while I am uploading onto the X. They're doing so under a fake moon. This is mental illness. On top of what is conspiracy to commit murder, stalking as an agent. Communities engaged in gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport at 6:37 p.m. Engaged in the ongoing documented stalking by commercial plane, which I've been documenting upon my exit at the Old Family Community Library. As I capture images of the Ontario International Airport stalking, the entity is immediately following with helicopter activity at 6:38 p.m. And it is currently, by the way, 6:51 p.m., 6:50 p.m. This demon is flying in circles above my head, repeatedly communicating a real-time threat to my life, safety, and well-being, and doing so in furtherance of what is murder that the entity is engaging in, a documented pattern of stalking and harassment, while keeping the evidence of stalking me in helicopters and as a corrupt department under surveillance. That is, with simultaneity to my documentation onto the internet. The entity is engaged in this pattern of flying in circles around me, engaged in ominous stalking in concert with the people of the state, exhibiting severe mental illness in doing so. And also, this is the evidence that's going to put Mike LORENZ in federal prison as an exposed domestic terrorist, where this agency is acting in furtherance of murder, stalking as a corrupt police department that's actually engaged in repeatedly kidnapping with the intent to obstruct justice and criminally defame. Okay? Their mental illness is shown through the specific environment, stalking by flying over the fake moon. This is where the entity has the fake sun. And the entity is clearly engaging and openly targeting me. I want to be clear. The entity is not sounding any sirens. There's no emergency. The sirens are used with regard to criminal summoning, monitoring me as well. The entity is engaged in this overt stalking and monitoring while I'm publishing on X right now, which I'm also going to put this video on X. Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams are going to be prosecuted. This is the same criminal conduct of Michael Moore and Dominic Choi of the Los Angeles Police Department as well, doing so in concert with the people of the state. You see their shadows on the wall. You see their shadows on both sides of their person. This is open domestic terrorism by the people of the state, and the entity is going to federal prison. This is the same deal with the people of the state that engage in kidnapping as one entity. It is currently, again, 6:52 p.m. This is mental illness that the demon-possessed pose. This is impunity that they exhibit together. All right, engaging in what is gang stalking as a population, just getting around, walking their dogs, engaging in that stalking together. The entity's engaged in what is using their lights on the Ontario Police Department vehicles back here. This is the entity engaging in that gang stalking, and this is what you're witnessing. The entity does with regard to threatening and intimidating and engaging in that which is targeting and furtherance of murder and kidnapping. This is P.O.C. Okay, the entity is subject to federal prison. The kidnappings that Jonathan Burnett engages in 2019 with Tracy Banks. The kidnapping that this agency commits with Tracy Banks on May 29, 2025, pursuant to criminal defamation, where they are together engaging in what is targeting and furtherance of murder and seeking to defame my character in doing so. This is the entity that is going to be federally prosecuted. And this is criminal conduct that Mike LORENZ is fully engaging in. This is P.O.C. All right, it is currently, again, 6:53 p.m. All right, this is going on X. This is going on Facebook. This is the criminal conduct that OVITT Family Community Library is engaging in and facilitating. When they summon these demons that lie and say somebody told them that I was yelling at them in the bathroom, when they lie and say that I'm harassing, and they're engaging in this pattern of conduct, that's why they're going to federal prison. This is P.O.C. Regal Park, Smokehouse, Wells Fargo, the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, the people of the state, walking around and into your light are monitoring you. And this is mental illness, stalking you, monitoring you, threatening you while keeping their back to you. They're also monitoring your vagina in the bathroom while keeping their back to you. And the demons do so on behalf of this agency that's engaging in surveillance on communication devices as well. This is P.O.C. The entity that exhibits its mental illness in this plain view is the entity that's exposed as a domestic enemy in the United States. All right, this is the entity that is being disbanded, and the people of the state are going to federal prison for targeting with the exposed domestic terrorists. This is Mike LORENZ, the Ontario Police Department, the City of Ontario, the Ontario International Board, the Ontario Executive Team. This is their clear stance on what is the laws that they're in violation of while they're keeping American citizens under surveillance, and Paul Leon is being removed from office for it. This is no city council. This is an entity that's engaged in state surveillance and furtherance of murder, which is what this stalking and this criminal monitoring, this ongoing active documented and published intimidation tactic is relevant to what is the entity that is conspiring your murder. This is P.O.C. And this is a documented pattern by LAPD, by the Fontana Police Department as well. The entity is doing so with knowledge that I am in real time, at the same time simultaneously publishing the evidence on the video of the internet. That's criminal summoning. Those are the demons engaging in pattern of conduct together with them. This is the entity that's gang stalking with the people of the state. This is surveillance. While they're walking around back and forth, this is surveillance. While they're doing so under a fake moon and the fake sun that stays here, this is surveillance. This is P.O.C. It's 6:55 p.m. I just want to be clear, Jason Isaac Fields and Tracy Banks, Tommy Allen Banks, the entity that's engaged in what is perjuring your character while they're gang stalking you. The criminal defamation is showing what the criminal purpose is. You are not going to successfully defame any American citizen or speak to their character when you're stalking and targeting in the way that the Ontario Police, the state of California, is proven to be, and doing so with this knowledge that they're being documented while the mentally ill are engaging in this widely exposed effort at what is terrorism and intimidation while they know that they're being documented. This is the foolish conduct that's putting all of them in prison. Mike LORENZ is going to be federally prosecuted. He's going to be the first in this country, exposed as an enemy of this country, of American citizens, and of the Constitution. This is the entity that's engaged in what is terrorism and targeting and furtherance of murder and kidnapping, not law enforcement. And that's the entity that is a maniacal psychopath, doing so under, again, what is the circumstances of what is engineer light, doing so in concert with minor children, doing so while the demons are, again, frustrated at your documentation, and they engage in acts of violence. That's an act of violence that I just documented. And Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams are going to be federally prosecuted. I just want to be clear. They are going to federal prison. This is going to set what is precedent in this country as you are targeting terrorists in this country. They are enemies of this country, enemies of American citizens, and they sought to murder me and engaged in what is targeting me in furtherance of that criminal objective in concert with Tracy Banks and Jason Fields and Eric Spencer, fake friends and family that conspired my murder with the corrupt government that is proven to be targeting. That's directly rebutting what is perjurious testimony in criminal courts where Lisa Rogan, where Shannon Dykes, where Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams sharing what is kidnapping, and they're going to be federally prosecuted. That includes Alan D. WAPNER, the Ontario International Airport. This is all very wealthy evidence with regard to prosecuting the terrorists in the city of Ontario, in the state of California, that are sharing in a pattern of conduct where I'm documenting this P.O.C. in Costa Mesa, that's Orange County, California. I'm documenting this in San Diego County. I'm documenting this in Riverside County. I'm documenting this in Los Angeles County. I'm documenting this in Kern County. And the entities engaged in what is this P.O.C. with regard to what is mental illness that shows itself. Dang it. Okay, that's fine. We're good. All right, I'm documenting on video, so that's why I stopped speaking right now. My video stopped, but I'm documenting in Kern County. If you look at my body of evidence, I'm documenting in Kern County the entity that's stalking in helicopter under the fake sun, and the entity engaged in what is that ongoing exposition. All right, an expose, if you will, of what is ongoing frustration. That's a threat to your life, and these demons are pacing all around, engaging in that ominous stalking in plain view. These are the demons that are hostile with every regard, in every regard with regard to what it is that I publish on the internet, what it is that I state, what it is that I said is going to happen to them, and it is going to happen, including while they engage in that documented act of terrorism right now, flying in circles over my head. There is no question about who the Ontario Police Department are stalking, and they also want it to be known that they are stalking an American citizen. They want it to be known that they are terrorizing an American citizen. They want it to be known that they are doing so in violation of the law. They want it to be known that they are keeping the evidence about it under surveillance while doing so and knowing that it's going to be put on the internet. These are clear statements of terrorism, of threatening American citizens in this country, and you need to pay attention because this is a shared statement by every aspect of terrorism in the city of Ontario, in the state of California. That's the gang stalking court that shares in kidnapping. That's the gang stalking sheriff's department that shares in kidnapping. That's the gang stalking fire department and ambulances that engage in kidnapping. The entity that's gang stalking with your peers, your church group, your community that are sharing and targeting American citizens in furtherance of murdering them. The entity is sharing in that communication of an overtly communicated threat, flying over my head for over 5 minutes and doing so while they know a camera is on them, while they know it's going straight on the internet, and they're also going to be in court. This is the entity that's going to be mentally assessed for that. Understand that's overt mental illness that they are also exposing while it's no longer closeted, and it hasn't been for a long time, by the way. But this is a shared pattern of conduct. The LAPD engaged in what is 47 minutes of flying in a circle outside of my living room window in Los Angeles where the fake sun is rising and setting. 47 minutes of exhibiting severe mental illness while the people of the state, just like you see in this video, you'll see in this video, just like you are listening to me, they're just casually walking their dog. They're just walking by, groping each other's behinds as though they're so in love and nothing is happening. And the entity is engaging in what is stalking together, threatening together. These are the passive-aggressive psychopaths that engage in that act of violence while they're acting in furtherance of what is murder. And they're doing, though, they're forced to do it in front of the whole world, and they're also going to be prosecuted before the world. Mike LORENZ is going to be prosecuted as the terrorist that he is. These are domestic enemies, and that's exactly what I'm putting on X right now. And that demon, while I'm in the midst of publishing it, engages in that act of terrorism while they are failing at stopping it from going on the internet. It's going right on the internet, and it's relevant to what the entity knows is going on the internet when they decided to engage in what is threatening and terrorizing an American citizen that is publishing it, prosecuting them, maintaining an ongoing investigation, and then they step in. D. Ramos and Chris, those are domestic enemies. Though they're going to federal prison. Okay, this conduct with regard to what is stepping into the library and stating that nobody told you anything. You're engaged in surveillance and you're threatening my life while you have a gun on your waist and you're wearing a badge that you are unfit to represent with regard to law enforcement, and you're stalking me in furtherance of murder while you engaged in an ongoing ceremony nightly and daily with regard to stalking in helicopters. This is the entity that's going to federal prison for that. Okay, that's D. Ramos and Christ. Those are the latest gang stalking enemies of the state, and it includes what is the every iteration of that city. At 6:37 p.m. I'm publishing on X right now at 7 p.m. The entity is engaged in what is that pattern of conduct. Let me go ahead and show you this, because this is what the Ontario International Airport shares in. All right, this is the city of Ontario that's engaged in criminal summoning together. This is the entity that's stalking the Ontario International Airport's been engaged in what a serial flight over the Ontario Town Square under the fake sun, and now here's the fake moon. And this is where the Ontario, my video stopped recording right now. This is where the Ontario Police Department just engaged in what is over 6 minutes of flying in a circle over the top of my head, while the Ontario Police are demons manifesting, stalking with light activity off of B Street and Euclid. They're engaged in what is criminal summoning, not sounding their sirens, but using their police lights, pacing all around. This is mental illness. They're stalking with light. This is the demons that drive in police vehicles and wear police uniforms. That's their iteration of stalking with light. While you see the demon-possessed people of the state driving all around me and engineer light flying all across the wall, day and night, the demon-possessed do that in police vehicles while they are stalking with light, exhibiting severe mental illness, which is also obvious while a psychopath flies in circles. That's psychopathic pacing. Doing so over the top of my head in a helicopter, and they're doing so as a furious demon-possessed entity that is being published, the evidence about them targeting me, and while they listen to everything that I publish on the podcast, and it infuriates psychopaths who are going to prison. So they can be as infuriated as they want. They're going to federal prison. They can be as angry as they want. While they engage in criminal conduct that I have the evidence of, you're going to federal prison, and you're going to federal prison for defaming my character while you sought to conspire my murder. You're going to federal prison. You're going to federal prison while you engage in that malicious pattern of conduct, while you're engaged in an ongoing program, an unabated program of psychological torture, and you thought because of your position you would get away with it. And the maniacal psychopath that they all are is exposed when I document, I maintain my evidence published on the internet in real time, and they break out in what is a loss of self-control, which I'm documenting a pattern of. The inability to control yourself. You're always engaging in what is freaking out, having a publicly exposed crash out, flying in circles over my head for a prolonged period of time under things like a fake sun and a fake moon and engineer light. The mentally ill that are stalking together, okay? They're doing so, calling themselves an Ontario Police Department, the City of Ontario, the Ontario Board, the Ontario Executive Team, the Ontario Police Department is going to be prosecuted as the domestic terrorists that they are. This includes Michael Gerken, Alan D. Wapner, the Ontario Board, that's Julia Gu, Ronald Leverage, Kurt Hagman, what is Jim Bowman, and Alan D. Wapner is also on that board, and the entirety of that Ontario executive team. The entity that is gang stalking under Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams, who's a part of that federal prosecution for conspiring my murder, repeatedly kidnapping me and doing so. The entity is doing so while they're engaged in domestic terrorism and psychological torture, not law enforcement, and necessarily, as I document that pattern of manufacturing information, making it up and then treating it as facts while they then commit what is kidnapping. They engage in what is ongoing acts of terrorism and humiliation with regard to stalking and targeting in helicopters, coming in and lying about some sort of act that I committed. I'm harassing someone, or I'm acting in some outrageous, I'm screaming in the bathroom while they're lying and making it up, and my evidence proves in real time that they're lying about that. That's the entity that's targeting. That's the demon, that's the entity of demons that is flying over my head for 6 minutes in a helicopter, targeting me, flying in circles over me specifically. Where I'm showing you also the fake sun is rising and setting. This is the entity that's putting Tracy Banks in federal prison. She doesn't have an argument, and she also lacks in self-control. These are demons that resort to hysterical laughter, and they also engage in what is showing you simultaneously the absence of any self-control. Understand that mental illness. The entity that engages in what is breaking out in hysterical laughter is the demons that lose self-control, engage in psychopathic pacing, psychopathic conduct such as stalking with light, psychopathic conduct such as stalking under a fake sun that rises and sets over me, a fake moon at nightfall. That's all relevant to the entity that's going to be mentally diagnosed and criminally convicted, including by science. And that includes the people of the state. The demons that are sitting around stalking at the Ontario Town Square, you could see them walking their dogs or walking around in groups. They're just chilling while they're gang stalking in furtherance of murder. These are the demon-possessed that are cold-blooded serial killers and they're violent sex offenders. And they're doing so as a public a means of what is exposing what is public corruption. And this is the entity that's engaging in that corrupt system with the people of the state in real time, okay? It is currently 7:05 p.m. This is the entity that's been sitting up stalking all day long, and I am publishing on X right now what you will see which is the picture of D. Ramos and Chris, they're going to federal prison. Those are enemies of the state, and that's the accurate label that you see above their heads. They are sharing in this system of stalking. Stalking is born of obsession, which is mentally depraved conduct, where the entity is engaging in what is the pattern of conduct amongst demons that are using planes and helicopters, and stalking with engineered light, where the crime scene is what is surrounding me day and night, a fake moon at night, and what is a fake sun during all of the day. And that is underscored when I remain at venues like the OVITT Family Community Library, a venue full of demons who are going to prison for the June 16, 2022 kidnapping. They're going to federal prison for every act of criminal summoning, just like what Kristen D. Ramos committed on what was October 24, 2025, where you're looking at a fake sun that's rising at that OVITT Family Community Library and setting at that OVITT Family Community Library. And it's directly relevant to the psychopathic behavior you see here, this passive-aggressive stalking conduct, like nothing's happening. Those are the demons that engage in criminal summoning, and they're going to federal prison, okay? The demons that are Mickey and John and Alex and Alan that are engaged, and Yesenia that are engaged in what is gang stalking at the OVITT Family Community Library, they're going to prison for kidnapping. The entity that's participating in this terrorism that they're engaging in right now, and it's directly relevant to the cases against every single last one of those gang stalkers at the OVITT Family Community Library, because that's how the legal analysis go, because the entity's documented gang stalking is occurring amongst the community. So you're engaged in what is targeting me inside of that library, making up allegations while you're engaged in surveillance, doing so under the fake sun that's aimed in alignment to me inside of that library, where the entity is terrorizing me while I'm outside en route to that library and from that library, and if they're underway even going in that library, lying out of their face about what did not happen, and everybody knows what happened, while I'm documenting gang stalking inside of the bathroom. The entity isn't doing that while that's the entity that's targeting, and also targeting while they fly over the top of my head for 5+ minutes, and the lying, mendacious, demon-possessed, psychopath, vagina-monitoring demons that are the people of the state, gang stalker right now, those are the ones that are inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, obsessed with me, stalking, harassing all day long, and engaging in what is criminal summoning with that agency, and they're going to prison. They're going to federal prison, okay? And they are enemies of the state, of all races, and every gang stalking immigrant, that's the entire state, they're being deported. That evidence right there is serving for deportation of the entire population that's of immigrant status in the city of Ontario, but this is understanding the entire state is engaging in what the pattern of conduct is exposed as in Ontario, California. The entire immigrant population is subject to deportation. Under Mr. Trump's administration, he has full jurisdiction under the law with regard to this investigation that provides him what is the evidence of criminal activity that is terrorism in concert with the government, the gang stalking, the corrupt executive branch throughout the state of California that's engaging in domestic terrorism, and terrorism is what is satisfying the basis of deportation of every gang stalking resident in the state of California. That's the entity that's engaging in what is exposing everybody while they're targeting an American citizen that is documenting it. And they do so with knowledge of that. That is an overt, clear statement of hatred of this country. It is no more clear with regard to speaking and establishing the fact that you are an enemy of this state, an enemy of the United States. It doesn't get any more clear than what the entity is engaging in. I just want to be clear. It's not personal, honey. It is personal with regard to me because they're demons and they're hostile to the Holy Spirit that's in me that exposes them. But you need to understand that this is with regard to anybody that poses a threat to these demons. They hate this country. They cannot be any more clearer to you about it. The federal government is going to deal with and target those terrorists. They are domestic enemies in the United States, no longer closeted and concealed among you. That's the public service announcement. That's the public good that the P.O.C. is serving to you, because you need to know about the enemies that are surrounding you in this country. And they're gang stalking at the Ontario Town Square, walking their dogs, walking with their significant others that are insignificant because they're obsessed with me, stalking me while they're holding hands with their so-called significant other. Both of them are obsessively stalking me. It's all about me, clearly under the fake sun. It's all about me, clearly, while the demons are stalking in a helicopter. They're crossing path. They're demons, okay? That's the entity that's mentally ill. It is currently 7:09 p.m. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that loses self-control as the truth is spoken. And I want to be clear, there is a pool of defendants that are going to prison based on proving targeting by the city of Ontario. They're going to federal prison. This is P.O.C. 7:18 p.m. 8CHN448. And repeating the same exact conduct as another demon. This is mental illness. And this is in concert with Mike LORENZ that engaged in what is terrorism with the same mentally ill population. License plate 9LNK959. 9LMK959. Repeating the same conduct just like the entity does with planes. As you document them, repeating this is mental illness. These are psychopaths. P.O.C. All right, the entity engaged in what is an ongoing sex offense. This is an entity that's sharing in that sexual violence while they're molesting with engineered light. So that's the supernatural that's combining with stalking conduct. The entity doing so of the Iglesia Profetica Apostolic. That's 115 North Fern Avenue. Those are the gang stalking immigrants as well. That's notable with regard to the entity that is stalking by helicopter as well. I'm taking images of that. That's again Mike LORENZ. That is gang stalking, targeting me, following me from place to place, which I've been documenting for years. The entity doing so while they are sharing in a sex offense committed with the mentally ill who are the people of the state. They are stalking in the path while the entity is maintaining impossible light activity, molesting my person, committing a sex offense while stalking in furtherance of murder. That's what Mike LORENZ is going to be federally prosecuted as, a domestic terrorist, an enemy of these United States, and facilitating violence amongst a corrupt population. That's relevant to stalking in helicopters. That's relevant to stalking with impossible light activity, while absurdly psychopathic demons are using helicopters and the resources of a corrupt police department to keep an American citizen under surveillance that they have conspired to kill. With, again, that's Tracy Banks, Eric Spencer, Tommy Allen Banks, those sharing in what is defaming my character while utilizing what are the corrupt acts of corrupt courts, entertaining what are exercising fictitious authority while they're seeking to falsely depict my character. While there is nothing other than defamation when the entities engaged in stalking in the way in which this same government would like to appear legitimate, having authority to engage in what are kidnappings, which doesn't exist. You're engaged in what is targeting me upon a series of kidnappings while you're then seeking to establish that criminal activity and mental illness is present at the same time. That's the entity that's stalking. That's the entity that's stalking with the people of the state exhibiting severe mental illness in that specific environment. This is the entity that's engaging in that together with the people of the state. This is, again, the ability to engage in what is the categorical assessment of what is mental illness on the face with regard to the criminal conduct of a stalker using a helicopter. A stalker that is following from place to place using a helicopter. And that is very specific with regard to the fake sun documentation showing how I am the target, and I am also the target of the demons that are harassing in that environment. Routinely, such as what Mike LORENZ via this agency, the Ontario Police, and via this airport, the Ontario International Airport, that share in that criminal pattern of conduct. The entities engaged in this, I want to be clear, at what is 9:20 p.m. at Chevron, 506 North Euclid Avenue. They are sharing in terrorism, just like they are at the Ontario Town Square. But German is the gang stalking a likely immigrant who is engaging in terrorism and furtherance of murder of an American citizen with the entity that's surrounding me and stalking me with commercial planes and stalking by helicopter. I'm capturing this in images right now with the people of the state. He is also sharing in what is a massive sex offense committed by psychopaths who engage in what is mentally deranged behavior, such as stalking with light, while they're engaging in what is criminal monitoring, which is demonic, and it's also demented behavior. This is the entity that's engaging in criminal activity, which is also going to be used to mentally assess them. The entity is engaging in this while the entity is stalking from place to place, following me and flying over my head for 6 minutes, and then following me to what is F Street in Euclid. That's what Mike LORENZ is going to be prosecuted for. It's the overt evidence of what is targeting, and this agency that Mike LORENZ is a terrorist leader of is engaged in targeting with regard to committing murder, and then doing so as a corrupt agency controlling the narrative. This is why that Ontario Police Department has engaged in a documented pattern of defaming my character, lying about criminal acts that I never committed, lying about events that never happened, such as me harassing somebody at the Ontario Town Square, such as me yelling at somebody in the bathroom, such as me physically attacking Tracy Banks in her apartment, and stating that there are things such as medication, things such as mental illness, neither of which exist. The entity is the same one that's manufacturing. It's the same one that's targeting and stalking me as an agency in helicopters under things like fake suns and fake moon and an engineered environment. That entity is going to be prosecuted for targeting. This is surveillance and furtherance of murder. And this is a pattern of conduct that Mike LORENZ shares with LAPD, for example, and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, stalking me in helicopters and doing so at the place of business where I am at Alvarado Gardens with speaker companies, the entity that's engaging in what is violating my right, my liberty right to employment, and to be free from terrorism. This is the entity that places you in that economic circumstance and then defames you and states that you cannot maintain employment. This is an entity that is targeting in furtherance of murder, and in order to do so does engage in what is kidnapping. This is the role that the Ontario Police, Mike Lorenz, Derek Williams have played, and the demon-possessed that are gang stalking of that agency. That includes the gang stalkers of the Ontario International Airport. License plate 9KMP 104, sharing in what is sexual assault and battery, and operation. There's a driver and a passenger in that vehicle engaged in operation of their devices while they're monitoring in the engineered environment and engaging in sexual assault and battery with the airport that's flying over where I'm located, stalking, because there's no, the entity is now stalking, flying close to me at 537 North Euclid Avenue, no longer flying over like they were serial flight since 4 p.m. Over the Ontario Town Square, right where I'm located. They're stalking right here, following just like the Ontario Police Department is, which I'm capturing in images by helicopter. This is, again, unmistakable targeting, and it is clear, and the evidence shows, and the criminal acts of Tracy Banks and the gang stalking family members, the gang stalking officials like Jason Isaac Fields, sharing in what is evidence collateral harms and conspiring my murder as well. This is relevant evidence with regard to the targeting, the case in chief that I've been handling for years. Okay, so this is a terrorist organization that is going to be prosecuted with regard to being a domestic terrorist, and the documentation that you're listening to, engaging with a stalking and doing so with the people of the state, flying in circles over the top of my head as though you are going to engage in what is a raid right there at the town square. Like I'm some sort of criminal, you're engaging in what is, you're about to drop bombs on me, you're about to start shooting at me, you're going to put the spotlight on me, you're going to arrest me. The entity is engaged in what is harassment, intimidation. That is the entity that is engaged in what is publicly humiliating you while targeting you. This is the same thing that they're doing when they're making malicious allegations and then engaging in what is a health check while they're gang stalking. That's their means of gang stalking you. The entity is going to be federally prosecuted for this. It is domestic terrorism, and they are mentally ill demons. This is the Nephilim that engages in using the system. The entity engaged in what is amplified plane activity right now, while you are mindful of the fact that this pattern of conduct is in fact shared with Los Angeles County. Robert Luna of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, Dominic Choi, and before him Michael Moore, and the replacement of Michael Moore, which is Daniel, I can't recall his name offhand, but the replacement that is following the interim. Dominic Choi was in the interim while he was engaged in what is leading this targeting agency and stalking me by helicopter. Is a very heavily documented pattern of conduct. The fake sun rising and setting at my apartments. It's a pattern, a criminal system that the Ontario Police Department shares with the Los Angeles Police Department, and I remain no criminal whatsoever. And I've never had any history of mental illness, and there is no mental illness. This is why I've been maintaining my body of very organized and consistent evidence proving that the government is both targeting and mentally ill while engaging in this malicious system that is committed in furtherance of their plan to take my life, steal my money and property, and defame my character, and doing so in concert necessarily with the demon-possessed, mentally ill population, the people of the state, the ones who you see walking their dogs while the entity is stalking for 5 minutes, flying over the top of my head in circles and helicopters, which is a documented pattern of conduct by the entity that is shared by LAPD. The entity is engaged in this psychopathic pattern. That's a pattern of conduct shared by more than just Ontario police, okay? Engaging in this while I'm in my home and while I'm at work in Los Angeles. That is beyond any coincidence, and it's to a scientific degree with regard to prosecuting LAPD, Dominic Choi, Michael Moore, Derek Williams, Mike Lorenz, that are engaging in what is the conspiracy to commit murder via the system of criminal monitoring, gang stalking me with a population of people that are poised to take your life and then control the narrative as to what happened to you. This is relevant to defaming your character, depicting you as a prostitute, depicting you as a drug addict, depicting you as mentally unstable, someone that is living a life of instability, liable to disappear at any time, and or one that is taking their own life. This is relevant to the very damning and very probative criminal acts of criminal defamation by San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department and by the Ontario Police Department and the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court. The entities engaging in what is kidnapping, serial kidnappings, in the same way that I'm documenting them engaged in serial targeting, serial stalking, okay? The entity that's engaging in what is defaming my character while you're stalking is doing so while they have conspired my murder. That is serving a very deliberate criminal objective that they are acting toward while they're stalking day and night in helicopters and as a corrupt police department and as an airport sharing in that criminal pattern of conduct. These are indeed domestic terrorists. They're engaging in that ongoing pattern of conduct. And I want you to hear, again, plane activity on Euclid Avenue. This is what they were doing much more south at the Ontario Town Square. While the entity is 9TLW581, engaging with a sexual assault and battery, sharing in that with the Ontario Police Department that I'm taking pictures of, following me at F Street and Euclid Avenue, stalking me as a population, molesting me, a sex offender, molesting me with engineered light as a population, and doing so threatening with helicopters and planes as a population that is stalking me obsessively. This is indeed a population of mentally ill people who are obsessed, in fact, with me, and my evidence proves that. And not only that, the entity, the population is going to be prosecuted, the government, the public entity itself is going to be prosecuted, and Mike LORENZ, by name, is going to be prosecuted as a domestic terrorist, conspiring my murder, co-defendant of Tracy Banks, conspiring my murder, defaming my character, while Tracy Banks and the people of the state, in other words, that have shared in defaming my character and kidnapping, criminal summoning, have engaged in what is the need for what is government assistance. And this government assistance is the being a co-conspirator to that murder, engaging what is gang stalking, which is a state-organized system. It's state targeting. All right, and that's relevant to the co-defendants, the co-conspirators, the domestic enemies of the Ontario International Airport. That is the entity that is, again, creating this plane activity, is targeted with regard to where I'm at. I'm at 537 North Euclid Avenue. The entity is engaging in what you see, that impossible light activity under the fake sun. You see that impossible light activity at nightfall in the videos that I'm capturing. This is what is coexisting with stalking me in planes and helicopters. Okay? And each license plate represents the government. It's the entire entity. License plate 9CDV200, sexual assault and battery, a demon-possessed and mentally ill psychopath that is stalking. And doing so while molesting with impossible light activity. It's not their headlights that's creating multiple shadows, that's creating vacillating shadows. These are demons that are engaged in monitoring, and they're doing so the criminal aid of Mike LORENZ, that entire agency that is targeting me. Okay, the Paul Leon is being removed from office. This is axiomatic, but the entity is going to be prosecuted as terrorists. And they are overtly expressing the fact that they are enemies of this country, while they are targeting an American citizen that is exposing it at the same time, that is enforcing their rights. And this is speaking to what American citizens have the right to do and are empowered to do, as this will establish precedent, and putting domestic terrorists, enemies of this country, like Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams, where they belong, in cages. They belong in Guantanamo Bay. They're enemies, they're terrorists, and they're engaged in what is murdering American citizens, kidnapping them, defaming their character as though that you are above the law and you are not. I'm going to prosecute you by the laws that you're not superior to. That's relevant to the psychopath that's stalking me in a helicopter for 5+ minutes, flying in circles over my head as though there are no consequences under federal law. Just like a population, millions of people that are stalking together and engaging in what is this criminal conduct, while they are, again, accustomed to getting away with this level of targeting, this level of lawlessness, this level of what is maliciously targeting an innocent American citizen. This is relevant to what is mandated: federal prison, mental asylums, prosecution as terrorists. P.O.C. License plate 8NDC282. The Ontario Police Department is gang stalking, flying over 537 North Euclid Avenue. That's the Bethel congregation, where I documented the fake sun over my head this morning at 11:30 a.m., approximately 11:30 a.m. The entity is engaged in what is gang stalking me while I'm inside of that building. The entity is engaged in what is gang stalking while I am here, and I'm subject to also what is a molestation, because that's not the sun over my head at Bethel congregation. Okay, it's also not the sun while it's rising on the same block where this Bethel congregation is, at F Street, at E Street, where the fake sun is rising at 7 in the morning. That's 8, 9, 10, 4 hours later, and it's on the same block at F Street, and the fake sun is over the top of my head. That's not the sun, and that's also where the entity is gang stalking by planes. This is where mental illness is exposed, those that are engaging in stalking in commercial planes, as I'm capturing on video right now. This is the entity that's engaging in what is surveillance. Listen to that plane activity, and look at the elevation. Very low elevation, hovering, and you're also looking at what is north of where the Ontario Town Square is, where I'm documenting video and image after image of them flying over the Ontario Town Square. This is the evidence of stalking from place to place. This is the evidence of stalking from place to place while the entity is molesting with impossible light. That's a sex offender. That's the government that's a sex offender. That's the government that is acting through a population of mentally ill psychopaths who are stalking. Okay? And so is German, a gang stalking immigrants being deported while engaging in a sex offense and terrorism with the population. Gang stalking with the city and furtherance of murder. German is going to be deported. Any other immigrant in the city of Ontario and in the state is going to be deported. They're engaging in the pattern of conduct in furtherance of murder, and they are stalking with impossible light in an engineered environment. That's not headlights. That's not headlights. that causes my shadow to skate across the wall. And this is also in the environment where they're engaging in this targeting. The Ontario police are capturing images right here. I captured it in still images. They're flying right over Bethel Congregation, stalking me, and then flying right past crossing path, going what would be this would be going west on F Street, okay? This is P.O.C. The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct in concert with the people of the state. That's why I'm calling out German. That's why I'm calling out the demons that are gang stalking at ARCO. They're molesting with impossible light that you see moving across this storefront right here. That's impossible light. Those are demons. It's not their headlights. The demon possession is shared by the demons that are stalking in commercial planes and Mike Lorenz, Derek Williams, the Ontario Police Department. These demons are going to federal prison for criminal summoning, kidnapping with the Ontario Police. That includes Tracy Banks and Eric Spencer. They're going to federal prison for kidnapping as a corrupt and mentally ill population. That's exhibited to you with the impossible light activity. That's exhibited to you with the entity that's maintaining that environment, and they're stalking in that environment with that impossible light. They're doing that on this street where the fake sun is rising right here at the ARCO when I stand there in the morning at 7 in the morning. And they're engaging what is keeping the fake sun while I'm standing at this venue, 536 North Euclid Avenue at 11 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. This is the entity that has the fake sun setting at the OVITT. That's on the opposite side of the same parking lot. Where the entity is targeting where I'm at, that's not a takeoff, that's targeting, okay? That's the entity that is, again, Mike Lorenz is going to be prosecuted because it's the entity that is gang stalking as a city that then commits kidnapping through those that are engaging in criminal surveillance, not law enforcement. And the Ontario International Airport is sharing in what is repeated kidnappings, and that airport is being shut down. This is mental illness while you're looking at what is psychopathic pacing. The entity that's engaging in stalking me, flying in circles for 5 minutes, 5+ minutes in helicopters, psychopathic pacing. And this is the entity that's going to be prosecuted for terrorism and furtherance of murder with the demon possessed that are stalking with impossible light activity while they're monitoring. Monitoring which is pursuant to what is demonic, and it's also criminal. 9LZK528 is sharing in that sexual assault and battery with engineered light and furtherance of murder, psychological torture, and sexual violence. While the government uses planes and helicopters, that is a tremendous amount of investment in money, time, and resources. The mayor is a gang stalking psychopath and enemy of this country. So is Mike Lorenz, Michael GERKEN, Alan D. WAPNER, the entire Ontario board, and the Ontario executive team. They are going to be removed, and that's why the entity is stalking me in the way in which you see. Their mental illness is going to expose them and put them in mental asylums, put them in federal prison where they belong. The entity is going to be prosecuted, deported out of this country, and they will be labeled as the terrorists that they are. That's speaking to how you're going to target domestic terrorists, the population of demons. These are domestic enemies of this country. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:35 p.m. This is the basis of disbanding the Ontario Police Department and putting terrorists Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams engaging in what is terrorism before he retired in 2020 in federal prison. This is P.O.C. Stalking conduct, now maintaining serial flight over Euclid Avenue, hovering at 537 North Euclid Avenue at the RAYBON mortgage, flying over the Truth and Love Ministries, doing so while the entity with impossible light activity. This is the entity that's maintaining aerial surveillance with these demons. This is the mentally ill population stalking obsessively together, maintaining engineer light all over everything while they're stalking. This is accomplished during the day while you're witnessing mental illness of a population while they keep a fake sun over me. This is speaking to the obsession of a population as well. This is P.O.C. None of that is headlights. Their headlights, while they're driving straight, their headlights are not causing light to sweep north and south on the wall. These are indeed the mentally ill, and the entity is now engaging what is stalking by flying as close to me as possible. The entity is obsessively stalking, and this is the entity that's obsessively stalking and also planning murder. That's the pattern of conduct. That's sexual assault and battery. That's the entity that's doing so as a government act. The entity, Mike Lorenz, is a sex offender that's obsessed with me and is stalking as an entire agency, and the entity that's engaging in sexual violence is obsessively stalking to commit murder. This is P.O.C. The elements of monitoring are pursuant to what is the objective to commit murder, while a government is maintaining a system of stalking an American citizen in order to take their life and then control the narrative. This is P.O.C. That's the purpose of criminal defamation, the unlawful threat posed by the Ontario Police, the City of Ontario. P.O.C. Harassment, terrorism, and psychological torture by entity, that is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring in the specific environment which the entity itself maintains. This is what you're witnessing at nightfall when the fake sun sets in alignment to me, and the entity is still maintaining the same exact engineered light while they are stalking by crossing your path. By any means, by aerial surveillance, as the entity has shown, and on the roads and the highways, and by presence in the environment, and that is under any circumstances, any and all circumstances of what is all criminal presence, while surveillance is underway by the government. This is the entity maintaining the specific environment which is relevant to sexual assault and battery, the perpetual sex offense committed as an entity that is engaged in what is the incessant unlawful touching as stalkers, a population of them, keeping one person under surveillance and then repeatedly, ceaselessly, that is perpetually engaging in a sex offense of unlawfully touching with what is not even naturally occurring light. It's light that is engineered light, demonic in its nature, supernatural, and it's molesting the person for the criminal purpose of a stalker to keep you under surveillance. And this is happening over and over and over again. That's the perpetual sex offense, and that is the maintenance of the specific environment, which is the crime scene where sexual violence is underway. It is the perpetual sex offense by entity. Sexual assault and battery is committed as an entity. Predatory and sexually violent pattern of conduct, which includes an unlawful touching by the entity, and unlawful touching by the entity for the demented and predatory purpose of molesting the person of the targeted individual via directed light, which is to harass, to terrorize, psychologically torture, and sexually violate as an entity. That is stalking. Okay? Where the engineer light is present, surveillance is underway. Surveillance is pursuant to stalking. Unwarranted, unlawful, ongoing following, which is identified by the engineered light, the specific environment. You are a stalker, and it's a population of them. And it is all state action. State actor, Omnitrans Transport. License plate, Edward Bob 73 Jerry 82. That's a paper plate. 8 WWD 816. That's 8 Wendy David 816. 9 Sam Queen Apple 520. 6 Thomas Paul 081. 4 Edward 0 Paul 588. It looks like 9 Nancy Queen Thomas 217 on that would be a pink Lexus. Gang stalking at Wells Fargo 240 North Euclid Avenue, engaging what is stalking with light. And that is the it's on the record, published on the Google Drive, but that's what it looks like. So I'm going to, again, 9NQT217. It is published on the Google Drive. I'm not going to delete that. License 8 Robert Zebra David 270. 8X0 Zebra 581. 9 Thomas Igloo David 849. 7 Wendy Nancy Robert 506. 9 Jerry Mary Henry Bob. Actually, 9 Jerry Mary Henry 867 is what I think that is. 9 Robert Charlie 633. ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue, sharing in what is the perpetual sex offense committed as an entity. ARCO is specifically located at 434 North Euclid Avenue, but ARCO, the company that is headquartered in Los Angeles, California, is going to be prosecuted for the sex offense upon engagement in what is federal group stalking and monitoring, where the sex offense is occurring, where they are sharing in that sex offense irrelevant positioning, where they are facilitating sexual violence while engaging in state surveillance in furtherance of murder committed as an entity. License Larry 348 Nancy 0. License 9 Thomas Igloo Henry 520. That is the ARCO employees systematically engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring and the perpetual sex offense. 7 Sam Apple Thomas 058. This is Hardick, systematically engaged in the perpetual sex offense as a gang stalker employed at a facilitating venue, Chevron, at 506 North Euclid Avenue. Chevron is also engaged in the perpetual sex offense and facilitating that sexual violence while gang stalking with the government and in concert with the gang stalkers as patrons, serving for the prosecution of Chevron and the federal RICO case against the company itself. 7 Xavier Igloo Yolanda 347. That's Hardick. Hardik is the third party who is also likely subject to what is a deportation upon prosecution. License 9 Mary Yolanda David 953. License 7 George Bob Henry 574. License 7 Yolanda Igloo Sam 230. 7 Zebra Thomas Charlie 279. 8418517, I believe. 7 Mary Larry Nancy 644. 8 Jerry 0 Xavier 229. 6 Yolanda Zebra Kelly 886. Bethel Congregation at 536 North Euclid Avenue. This is a sex offender. This is a gang stalking religious organization in relevant position while the fake sun is over me and I'm subject to bathroom monitoring. That's the perpetual sex offense as well. Engaging in what is a molestation of my person while a population is keeping me under surveillance inside of this fake church. This is license 9 Henry Queen Robert 436. 9 Uncle George David 271. The Iglesia Apostolica Profetica, located at 115 North Fern Avenue. This is an entity that's engaging in the perpetual sex offense. That is a facilitating venue where the entity is engaging in that sexual violence by a gang stalking me at that venue in relevant position to me at 537 North Euclid Avenue, the RAYBON Mortgage, where the entity is stalking by planes and helicopters. This is state-sponsored terrorism by those who may very well be an immigrant population as well, engaging in the perpetual sex offense in furtherance of murder. This is not based on any sort of hours of this religious organization that is located at 115 North Fern Avenue. It's based on that entity that is using it both while it is open, engaging in that pattern of conduct ceaselessly, and while the doors of that establishment are closed and that establishment is still a means of and a location where that criminal pattern of conduct in furtherance of the same exact murder and the same exact targeted individual remains underway. License plate 7 Victor George 281. 8 BQT 228, or excuse me, 8 Bob Queen Thomas 278, I believe. License 9 Henry Queen. I can't really see the rest of that plate. 8436, but I'm going to go ahead and leave that one out. That one's remaining on the drive, though. And again, this venue, Downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments, Saris Regis Group, a perpetual sex offender, engaging in what is criminal surveillance, and so is every gang stalker residing at, employed at, and documented in relevant position to and at the venue. Sharing in that perpetual sex offense, which is committed as a criminal act committed in furtherance of murder. License 445UY, 445 Uncle Yolanda. That's a handicap plate. 54503 David 2. 8 Nancy Sam Nancy 892. 8 Sam Bob 723. 9 Kelly 2 Paul 079. 9 Frank Larry Charlie 451. 7 Bob Mary Kelly 302. 8 Xavier Sam Victor 938. 7 Jerry Yolanda Uncle 7 5 9. 9 Victor Nancy Apple 983. 6 Robert Bob Thomas 762. Paul Zebra Apple 10 Thomas, that's an Arizona plate. 9 Apple Larry Victor 453. 9 Frank Kelly Apple 698. 7 Henry Wendy Xavier 195, another gang stalker systematically engaged in the P.O.C. at ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue. This is another third party German, license 6 Nancy Yolanda David 346, systematically engaged in the perpetual sex offense at the facilitating venue, shared by Chevron, engaging in the perpetual sex offense as a corrupt establishment, and doing so in concert with the gang stalking patrons who are committing that sex offense with Chevron, with German, this third party whose license plate I'm reciting, and doing so in furtherance of murder. The Ontario Police Department, which is engaged in criminal surveillance, doing so as a corrupt agency, using the resources of a police department. That's their police vehicles, that's the police helicopters, that are the demons themselves dressed up as police officers and exhibiting what is mental illness while they are masquerading as having authority under the law while they're engaged in gang stalking. At the same time, they are engaged in the perpetual sex offense in concert with the population that I'm documenting engaging in the perpetual sex offense. That government, which is what the Ontario Police represent, is sharing in that perpetual sex offense through the population, including EGOOM82, I believe, or M982, EGOM982, that's a paper plate. Nonetheless, this is the entity that's acting in concert with the people of the state. This is the government that's engaging in, and that, again, incalculable and that which you cannot quantify with regard to pure numerosity. That's when the numbers come into play. The sex offense that the population is committing against a target individual, that it is conspiring to murder in concert with the government, the sex offender itself, the Ontario Police Department, Mike LORENZ, Derek Williams, who are going to be federally prosecuted as domestic terrorists. And Starbucks, 507 North Euclid Avenue, engaging in the perpetual sex offense while they are sharing in that sex offense with its gang stalking patrons, its gang stalking employees, the government that's sharing in the pattern of conduct, the relevant positioning of that establishment while you're subject to that as a population, and while in the presence of that establishment where that sex offense is underway. Again, that's the establishment that also committed kidnapping with the Ontario Police Department. Sex offenders together engaging in kidnapping while they are engaging in that sex offense committed in furtherance of murder while they're monitoring you. That's again 507 North Euclid Avenue, Starbucks. Truth and Love Ministries, RAYBON Mortgage is 537 North Euclid Avenue, 534 North Euclid, 531 North Euclid Avenue. These venues that are prosecuted while the entities aiming all that engineer light and prosecuting the entity where you are engaging in that pattern of conduct, that location is engaged in that pattern of conduct. And I've documented the proof of that. I'm being gang stalked outside of the hotel room of Economy Inn. I'm being gang stalked while I'm inside of my hotel room at Economy Inn. I'm being gang stalked while I'm on the sidewalk outside of Economy Inn. And I've shown you the fake sun rising and setting at Economy Inn. I've shown the Ontario Police gang stalking me by helicopter, that agency targeting at Economy Inn. I've shown you the City of Ontario gang stalking with commercial planes over my hotel room, over my head in the parking lot, following me to and from that venue by the Ontario International Airport, both at that venue and being around that venue. That's the prosecution of the entity. That is including every location where you're subject to that sex offense, where you're seeing engineer light moving across that structure, that establishment. They are engaged in the P.O.C. So I'm showing you how it is not innocent engagement while you're just at the venue, but that venue is not engaged in that pattern of conduct. That is not the case. It's happening there because they are engaging in it. And moreover, this is not just ordinary criminal conduct where people are selling drugs outside of the church, but none of the people inside of the church are drug dealers or they even take drugs. This is federal group stalking, monitoring, gang stalking, and it's demonic activity. The demonic system is underway while everyone in that environment is of that same condition. They are all demons and they're all engaging in sharing in that demonic pattern of conduct. It is also proven through tangible evidence, that which with regard to what is spiritually shared amongst all of them. They're all demons. And I have the tangible evidence that proves that and establishes that. Where the P.O.C. is underway, you will be prosecuted, and I don't even have to ever come in physical contact with you. Okay? And that's, by the way, commensurate with regard to justice and the malice inherent to stalking as a population. 9B TG 977, engaging in the perpetual sex offense. OVITT Family Community Library, 215 E.C. Street, filled with, ridiculous level of evidence, engaging in kidnapping as well. They're going to federal prison for sharing and kidnapping with the agency that is on video stalking me last night at the Ontario Town Square for 5+ minutes, overtly engaging in what is a threat to the demise of everyone else. It's also not a question that you committed kidnapping with that agency with the intent to obstruct justice in furtherance of my murder. And that's why also the fake sun is rising and setting at 215 E.C. Street, where the inside of the depths of that venue, even on the first floor, at the basement level, I'm showing you impossible light activity, the perpetual sex offense, monitoring my vagina in the bathroom, where they are stalking in that bathroom, where engineer light is present, you're stalking. And it's underway in concert with that same agency that's stalking in helicopters and planes. The perpetual sex offense is underway, committed in furtherance of murder, and that is the OVITT Family Community Library, whose grounds on the inside of that venue. That is, I want to be clear, handing over evidence to me to prosecute you. It's one thing to have the fake sun outside, for you to bring the evidence inside, for me to just sit at the desk and take a picture of it, for me to be downstairs and just show you the impossible light activity. Yes, they are targeting. Yes, they are demons. They're engaging in surveillance while you're using the toilet. They are sex offenders. That is the mentally ill. That's the mentally ill, and that's the mentally ill conduct. Okay? That is the perpetual sex offender, the OVITT Family Community Library, 215 E.C. Street. This is P.O.C.